Hello Josh, I saw you on YouTube. I can't believe you advocate chilling out and having a nuanced opinion. It's difficult, Celine. It truly is. But if we try really hard, we can all work together and eventually not care about everything. If you care about looking like you care about everything. If you care about actually changing things, care about specific things. Remember that if you care about absolutely everything, sometimes it's more about the performative nature of looking like you care and less about the actual beneficial nature of being useful. Yes, Josh said that talking about the bigger picture is childish and naive. I didn't say it in those exact words. I said that worrying about things that you cannot change and effectively just increasing how stressed you are without focusing on small stuff that you can change isn't necessarily the best way to actually change things. Do you want to actually change things, or do you want to look like you care about everything? You can do both. Merle, you can do both. However, you have a limited amount of time and mental energy in the day. And if all of your time and all of your mental energy is taken up by worrying about everything else that's going on, instead of actively changing smaller things that you can individually affect, what would you rather do? If you want to worry about everything, that's fine. You can worry about everything. Personally, I've seen people who worry about everything burn themselves out mentally and physically instead of actually changing small things that they can change. Some people choose that class, some people don't, but being actively against the people who choose that class is counterproductive. Merle, have I said that I'm against you? Genuinely. Have I said that I don't like people who worry about everything? We're back in the loop, guys. Stop calling us childish and... I'm calling you childish and naive. Okay. That's fair. I believe that the people who are able to affect the most change in the world are often the people who focus on doing what they can to change things. I believe there are a lot of people in the world who do not focus on doing what they can, but instead are distracted by worrying about everything, including what they can't change. And it sucks to be able to say to someone, this is bad, but I'm not worrying about this right now. Merle, I gave $20 to a homeless family in their car the other day, but I still try to fix the reason why they are homeless. Okay, Merle, I'm not saying you haven't done good stuff. Are you going to worry about every single person who's homeless? And by that, I'm not saying, do you believe that they are all valuable? Because, yeah, obviously people believe that human life is valuable. But are you going to spend all of your mental energy and all of your time and all of your resources trying to fix every single one of those problems? By fixing the reason they're homeless. Okay, Mo, that's great. There's probably a community center somewhere near you that needs some funding increase. Are you worrying about that? People have to be on the same page, change problems. They do, Merle. They absolutely do. What about other issues? What about local libraries that are being defunded? You going to fix those? Yes, you are fixing those. Okay. What about local infrastructure that needs more support, like food banks? Are you also raising money to fix stuff like that? Because if the answer is yes, then fantastic. Are you raising money for every single charity? Are you worrying about every problem in every country? Nice Try says this is whataboutism, because it all stems from the system designed to extract wealth from those at the bottom and funnel it to the top. Yes, Merle, it absolutely does. It absolutely does, and you should choose something that you are able to affect. But having a tiny effect at everything will only work if everyone's doing it. Talking about the big picture leads to small changes, but you still at some point need to do those changes. You have a limited amount of time, you have a limited amount of effort, you have a limited amount of mental focus, you have a limited amount of anything. No matter how good your intentions are, you have a limited amount. Choosing what you give that limited amount to is important. So saying to give up is not the answer. Merle, if you think I've said to give up, then you are naive. I have not said to give up. I have said to focus where your energy is going to. You have a limited amount, and saying that you are going to give the thing to everything is naive. No, you are not. Worrying about everything does not change anything. Worrying about something that you do have the time, the resources, the focus, the knowledge to fix will help. There are a lot of problems in the world. No one has the power, the energy, the knowledge, or the focus to fix all of them. And saying that you're going to try to means none of them will get fixed. I'm not saying that you are morally reprehensible if you are trying to or not to fix any of those. I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm trying to say that the people that I've been involved with who often want to try and fix the most end up spending so much of their energy worrying about everything that they don't have enough energy left to actually do something of value. Discussing the changes needed are important to making those changes. Merle, I agree. I absolutely agree. Let's say, how many problems do you think there are in the world right now? Let's put a number on it. How many problems are there in the world? Let's put a nice number. Let's say 10,000. Okay. Let's say 10,000. There are 10,000 problems. This is just a random number that I'm picking out of the air. Let's imagine there are 10,000 problems in the world. Merle, I'm not having to go at you individually, but do you think we can probably agree that there are at least 10,000 things that need to be fixed? I think that seems like a fair number. There's probably more. There's probably way more. But do you think, just for the sake of argument, the sake of discussion, that we can use the number 10,000? Because it's pretty big. I think we can use that, can't we? Jay-Z would say 99, but I think we can say 10,000. And this is going to include every single country, every single person, every single system, every single ideal. Let's say 10,000. Let's say that we spend a day worrying about each problem. Just one day. We research, we learn, we focus, we decide what we can do, we raise money, we fundraise, we do outreach, we do support. One day per problem. How many years would it take to get through all of 10,000? And then that's putting one day into each of them. Just one day. That's not continuing to carry on with everything else. And do you think one day is going to be as valuable as someone who dedicates their life to trying to fix a problem? Right, so roughly 27 years, and we're giving one day to each problem, if there are 10,000. This is what I mean when I say that worrying about everything is childish. To change the rules of the game, everyone needs to know the changes to the rules. Merle, you're not talking... The problem is, and I don't think you're wrong for this, I think you're very idealistic, which is good. I think you've got the right attitude. The problem is that your attitude is being blinded by the need to sound morally superior. When we need to have the attitude and understand that we might need to ignore certain things in order to progress in certain other things. I don't think you're wrong to be idealistic. I think you're naive to think that you can be idealistic about everything and that's enough. There are a limited amount of things. I don't care how I sound morally. I want a world that doesn't have as much suffering. Merle, everyone wants that. Nobody is sat here thinking, you know what, I want a world with a certain amount of suffering. Nobody wants a world with suffering. The fact that you have to say that and you think that is in any way a boast, that's not what any normal person wants. It's fine to be idealistic and want a world without suffering. You do not achieve that by worrying about everything. You change the small things that you can change. I think people want to be on the right side of history in accordance with every single change that will ever happen. They want to be able to say, I was involved in this change, I supported this, I supported that. When just empty platitudes don't change things. Hard work and consistency does. While it's possible to support the idea of systemic change, it is not possible to be involved in the process of every single change. Instead, work out what you are good at and then be involved in that as well. This is the issue that I'm running into people when I say it's childish and naive to want to try and change everything at the same time. Merle, revolution happens by everyone being on the same page. I agree. Merle, do you disagree with wealth inequality? I would say that you do. And yet you're actively engaging by using Twitch. Do you believe that there is a level of kind of hypocrisy that is usable if it affects and reaches out to people? Do you believe there is a level of compromise that we can find with that? I don't have a sub on Twitch. I only donate directly. Using it increases its market value. But I'm not going to make a moral judgment of anyone. You live how you want to live. And when I say that you're childish and naive for wanting to change everything, I mean that unfortunately, we don't have many options and we have to use what we have to change things. Okay, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. We do have to use what we have to change things. Do you believe that you are going to... Let me ask you an honest question. Do you believe that you are going to convince anyone in this chat right now to change how they live their life? And if you could convince them, how would you want them to change? Don't give me generalities. Don't give me empty platitudes. Give me actual actionable steps that they can take. Because right now, you are spending your very limited time telling people... I'm asking you not to call people who care childish and naive. I'm calling people who value caring about everything over actively doing things that they can affect childish and naive, because I believe they are. If I saw an activist actually doing something, I wouldn't call them childish and naive. If I saw someone caring about everything and telling everyone else that everything needs to change, then I would. You gave $20 to a homeless family the other day. Great. Okay. Fantastic. That's an action that you chose to do. Do you believe that you deserve praise for that? You do things, that's what you're saying. Okay? You are saying I only do one. Merle, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. If you want to act in that way, you act in that way. That's absolutely fine. You do your best every day. Every day. For everyone, or for the people that you can actually affect and change. Talking about change is grassroots. It may change a single person's opinion. Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Talking about change is grassroots. The problem is that it feels very good. It gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling inside to say, we need to change things. Because, yeah, we probably do. The thing is that, do you want the warm, fuzzy feeling of we need to change things, or do you want actual, actionable steps on what you can change, how, and why? Because what I see is people saying things need to change, and then we say, okay, what would you change? And they tend to not have a big answer for it. I don't believe that apathy is the right thing to do. I don't believe... Okay, Merle, that's fair. You know what? Kiwi has just explained it to me. Merle, how about this? I think we can find some common ground here. I think that people should care. Are we on board so far? Is that common ground together? That's a nice, simple idea. People should care, 100%. People should not get burnt out. And I think we should focus on long-term, constant, consistent, systemic change. Are we on board so far? It's not just about, 1 or 2 days of extreme focus. It's about long-term, constant, consistent. It's about the wave wears away the rock over a long period of time. It doesn't happen immediately. It's a long-term thing. I would never expect everyone to care the way I care, because the system hurts everyone and they are sick and tired from all the pain of everyday life. Well, I agree. And I'm not saying everyone should care the way you care or the way you care is correct, but can we understand, can you agree that one of the best things that we need to be able to do is care long-term, to change constantly? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Can you agree with me there? Can you understand what I'm saying with that, Mel? That it's a marathon, that it has to be a long-term change. It's lots of work. Yes, but we are working toward ideals. Merle, I agree. I'm not saying that you working toward ideals is childish and naive. What I'm saying, what I need you to understand, is that if someone says they care about everything, every single problem that everyone in the world faces, they will get burnt out. They will run out of mental focus. They will run out of time. They will run out of money. They will run out of energy. They will not be able to actually affect change in the small, focused, long-term way that actually does change systems. They will instead hit the gym really hard for a week and then never go again. They will post a load of things on forums and then stop. They will go to a march and then not see it through. That is what I'm saying is childish and naive. If you are able to find the mental fortitude to constantly and continuously care about something, you will, over the long term, change far more than if you care about something intensely for a week and then move on. And what I'm saying is people that care about everything burn themselves out so quickly that they cannot continue with the long-term focus. If you want to change things, pick what you can change and do what you can. But do not burn yourself out. Merle, I mean, it could apply to Martin Luther King. He spent his life doing it. He did, Merle. But he picked a few things and focused on changing them. He didn't say, I'm going to fix every problem in the world. He said, I'm going to fix a problem that's affecting the society and the culture that I am connected to. He didn't say, I'm going to go and fix things in countries or societies or cultures that he is not specifically connected to. He chose this and did that. So I don't want to get into a discussion about civil rights because honestly, I am nowhere near schooled enough in that specific area to know about that. What I do know is that the people who have affected change in areas that they are, connected to have often very much focused on specific areas. I think I may have avoided on this quest. When I say people are childish and naive for caring about everything, I'm not saying that you're childish and naive for doing something. Doing something is great. Saying you care about everything, that's like saying, hey, this is a video game made for everyone. No, it's not. This is a book that everyone will read. No, it isn't. This is a song that there's no need to bring them down through caring, though. If you're more bothered about massaging your own ego and being made to feel good about caring instead of actively doing good by choosing something to do, then you're more bothered about the optics of what you're doing and less bothered about the actual effect that it's having. They may only have energy for caring. Merle, that doesn't change anything then. If you only have energy to say that you care about something, if all you're doing is inspiring other people to do things, that's fine. But I want you to understand that it's childish to try and inspire everyone else to do everything else. Attention is good Tinder. That's true. You have to base your cause well. Freedom means you're free to do so, but it means you cannot force anyone to do so. Yeah, absolutely. I get that, Mark. That's a good way of looking at it. If you see your role in systemic change as the person who inspires others, that's fine. That's part of the role. But you can't be the person that inspires others for every single problem ever. Because honestly, I think that's quite self-absorbed to think that you've got enough understanding of every problem to be the catalyst for change to all of it. If you want to talk about topics that you want changed, that's fine, you can do that. But if you say that every single problem needs to be changed and you are the person to inspire that change, you're doing it for your own ego. I truly don't care about myself, I care about everyone. That's not true, Mel. You do care about yourself. I'm sure that you do care about everyone as well, but you absolutely care about yourself. You say you have no ego. Yes, you do. Because you told us that you donated money to our homeless family. If you had no ego, you wouldn't have told us that. You needed us to know. You needed us to know because that proved you were a good person. Because if we didn't know that, we would judge you differently. And you want to be judged in a specific way. You want us to have a frame of reference about you. Because you say that people only say things, not do them. Yeah, and your ego said, I absolutely cannot allow that to be true. You needed us to know that you were one of the good people. Because you are spreading a falsity about you. I wasn't spreading a falsity at all. I was simply saying that caring about everything is childish and naive. And you came in here and said that I shouldn't be saying that because that might inspire some people to not care at all. And then you had to let us know that you were a good person. I didn't say that you specifically care about words over actions. I said that in general there is a consignment of people who do. They care about being seen to change things instead of actually changing things. People cannot truly care about everyone. And if you like to pretend that you can, then you're doing it to seem like a good person. There are people who genuinely care for self-preservation. Yeah, of course there are. The people that care about self-preservation are often able to continuously push through and continue to make change. Put your own oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's mask on. Like, the fate of the planet is important. Merle, I completely agree. But have you noticed, and I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but let me explain something to you that you'll notice as soon as people do it. When somebody wants to be praised for something, they will talk about either specifics or generalities. Specifics are, this is the exact thing I have done. Generalities are, this is the overall vision of what we should have. When I say something like, what should we do? People say things like, well, we need to care about the whole planet, which means I'm asking for specifics and you're giving generalities. But when I say, hey, we need to actually care about this in general, people say, well, what specifically are we doing? So when I ask for generalities, people give specifics, and when I ask for specifics, people give generalities. It's about bouncing back between those. In order to effect systemic change, we need to agree on the general change that we want, and then agree on the specific steps to get to that change. The problem is when we just bounce around and go from, well, things need to change in general. Okay, cool. What do we do? Because saying that we need to care about everything is way too general. Pick a thing and work on changing it. It's one thing to care about something, it's another thing to take action, but it's also a difficult, complicated thing to care about everything to the degree where your action is relevant. Hot take, it's impossible for any individual to care about everything. If you say you care about everything, you're a fraud and you want to appear as a good person to other people, virtue signaling. Mehdi, I would agree. Now, I'm not saying that if someone says, hey, this situation is bad, that you can't go, yeah, that's bad. And then someone goes, do you want to, get involved in this? I'm like, I've not got enough time in my life to do that. I've got a limited amount of things I can do. I've got a limited amount of focus. People think that if you say that you don't care about everything, you are endorsing the negativity in the world. Miles says, I legit want the world to not suck. That's all. Merle, so do we all. All good people want that. And I know that it sounds horrible for me to say trying to care about everything is naive. I'm not saying that you're wrong for caring. I'm saying that you're spreading your energy so thin that you won't make a noticeable dent in the systemic processes that make it bad. Choosing what you can do and doing it is great. But saying that you can do that for everything is too much. I honestly think that you are right. The world does suck, and it would be better if it didn't suck as much. That's totally true. You're not wrong with that. I do with small things every day, but still thinking about the big picture is important. Yeah, well, it is. But what I'm trying to get you to understand, and I don't think you're wrong with this, I think you've got your heart in the right place. The big picture is so big that trying to look at all of it means that you don't end up focusing on any specific aspect of it that you can actually change. Merle, you don't live in my local area, which means you don't need to see the problems that are going on around here day to day. You don't need to fix them, and you don't need to care about them, which is great because you've got a limited amount of focus, and I would rather you care and you focus on the things that you can do. You let other people focus on the things that they can do. And if you want to talk to people about things that are important to you, that's fine as well. But saying that you care about everything means that you are willing to give your time and your energy and your effort to solve every problem, which we simply can't do. What we can do is find people who are good at solving certain problems, people who are able to be dedicated, and focus on those. But again, all these things come from one problem. I think it's naive to say that. I think the problem is the human condition. There will always be people who want power. There will always be people. If you believe that the problem is capitalism alone, then I think is naive. I don't necessarily think that the problem is a financial system. I think the problem is that the people who are in charge of any system can become corrupt by that system, and the people who want power, the people who are going to abuse it, are the people who seek it out. The people who would make good leaders don't seek leadership positions. You can have almost any system become super corrupt. We should not encourage people to exploit others. I completely agree. Exploitation between people, exploitation between humans, is unfortunately a systemic issue with the human condition. I think it's easy to make a system the bogeyman, because humans like to have an enemy. An enemy is actually useful for us to have. And when you can make a single system the enemy, you don't need to address the idea that even if a different system were put into place, if the wrong people are put in to run it, it becomes a bad system. Exploitation is encouraged through capitalism, which causes the individual, such as homelessness, climate change, food scarcity. I think countries and societies that have tried other systems have also got their own problems. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, absolutely. Not saying it's a perfect system at all. You know what? The truth is that I am nowhere near intelligent enough to have a full, nuanced discussion about capitalism, socialism, and communism on Twitch. And the reason for this, Merle, and I hope you can understand this, is when you're talking to people online, it is difficult to get a fair and balanced response that people won't just respond emotionally to. You can understand that. I hope you can understand that. It is okay to want change. It is okay to dislike a system. The problem with any system will always be the human element. I think I am smart enough to know that I am not smart enough to have this conversation on Twitch. Oh, thank you for the demon skin. Forgot that it fell off. I don't think people, and this is a very important thing to remember, people are not wrong for recognizing problems in the system. And I think, and again, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, some of the most passionate activists I've ever known. Everyone is like, play another MMO if you hate this one, rather than fixing the game. Merle, if you're comparing the state of the world to the state of an MMORPG, while I understand what you're trying to do with the comparison, you have to understand it will make you look like you are not invested enough in each of the individual elements. Because what you're then doing is you're saying, hey, we should treat real life like a video game. Don't do that. So here is what I think we need to consider the idea behind. Some of the most passionate people that I've ever met who want to change the system are people who are not benefiting from that system. Correct me if you think I'm wrong on this. I have met people who have been exploited, who have been, pushed down by any individual system, and they are the people who absolutely want to change things. Because change would benefit them. And it would probably benefit a lot of people. But they also aren't focused enough on what change they want to do. Merle, you make plenty of money and have 2 bachelors of science degrees. Okay, great. So the $20 that you gave to a homeless person, was that a lot to you or not a lot? Because it could be a lot to them. You also said you have no ego and you've had to make sure that we know that you are wealthy and charitable. And people have decided to leave the chat because they do not want to continue with this. That's fine, okay. Because you said that people who take sides of the poor are poor themselves. Okay, now I think you're trolling, so I've never said that. Come on. Do you believe that? I'm just replying to you. You believe that I have said, or paraphrased, people who take the side of the poor are poor themselves. You did say people who are economically struggling are often the ones who want to change the system. Yeah. People who do not benefit from a system want to change it. People who do benefit from a system do not want to change it. If there were a communist system, the people in charge would be fine with it. If there were a communist system, the people being exploited by it would not be fine with it. And people would say, well, the idea of communism is that nobody gets exploited. There are going to be lifestyles and jobs and choices that are going to be easier. There are going to be many lifestyle choices. The people who make the system we have bad are the ones who own all the media. I agree. I absolutely agree. And if the system were to change, there would be a new media conglomerate. People would rise to that. And this also pushes through to Twitch as well. This absolutely pushes through to Twitch. I mean, Merle, do you believe that Twitch as the right place to have this kind of discussion? Because anyone can become corrupt. Absolutely anyone. Yeah, Merle, you've said that 3 or 4 times now. I understand that. You ask me if it's a good change. My answer is I don't know enough about that specific moment or system for my input to be relevant to it at all. I believe that a system that allows people to live freely and fairly would be a great idea, but I think most people would. But anyone can become corrupt. Absolutely anyone. You talked about this because you said that idealistic people are childish. That was just replying to things. Merle, I don't think you understand the nuance that I was talking with. Idealistic people are not childish. People who place being idealistic over actively engaging in long-term, manageable, sustainable, systemic change are. Fair enough, we can drop it there. Love your content. No, you don't. But I'm glad we have 30 minutes, thank you. Bunzy, can I get the lore on the profile picture? Bunzy, it's a strange day when I'm going to say, God, I've missed you. Quick, Bunzy, start talking about WoW. You see, we're having fun. Equat, so much fun. So much fun. Josh, you playing Albion online yesterday got me wanting to reinstall and give it a try. Would I be able to join your guild? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Let me run forward and just burn everything down. Hang on. Here we go. Idealistic people who act in realistic ways change the world. That's what it is. It's the acting in realistic ways that separates the naive from the actual beneficial. The chat is a lot harder to follow than back in the 100 viewers area. Terminally online, welcome. It is indeed, but I do my best, which is why I pick out the people that are going to keep replying to stuff. Am I not welcome here? No, Bunzy, you're welcome here. We just had somebody else that was interesting to talk to, and you were at least funny to talk to. Thanks for making you a decade younger with that title. You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. Bunzy, you are absolutely welcome here. As long as you're willing to engage in good faith and everyone be friendly, that's fine. It was definitely one of the conversations ever. Are some of your arguments worked out beforehand? I'm a logic nerd and got so impressed with your argument for structure. Crom, no, they're not. I have discussed multiple topics multiple times, but what I tend to do whenever I'm structuring anything, whether I'm writing something or speaking it out loud, is I follow a really basic structure, which is point, evidence, explanation, link, PEEL. That's what I would hope to be able to do. Make a point, state your evidence for it, explain why it's relevant, and then link it to the next thing you're going to say. But one of the most important things that I've learned whenever discussing anything with anyone is it's really important to understand what someone is trying to discuss first. So, if someone starts a conversation and they say, hey, I want to talk about this, what do you think about this? Ask questions about what they think, what they know, the focus on it. What is the issue? Because most people, first of all, they just want to be recognized. They just want to be seen. They just want some attention and some focus. And people don't want to feel insulted. If I say, hey, people that care about things are idealistic and childish, then people are going to go, I care about things. I'm not childish. We need to refine that. People that care about everything to a degree that everything is the most important thing in their lives are focusing on the aspect of caring more than the aspect of change. That's what I would say. How many coconut crabs could I fight off before being overwhelmed in a desert island setting? You find the big enough stick, you can spin around whirlwind style and hit lots in one go, which means quite a few. There is also the thing that people care deeply about current thing. Current thing is the most important thing to a lot of people. And then current thing changes. But humans don't want to feel insulted, but humans want to feel that they have been seen, they have been listened to, they have been respected. You had to stare carefully at the screen to realize it's not a neckbeard, it's just sunlight. It's actually the light from the angle over there. See, if I turn that way, you'll notice that it is in fact just the jawline there. Lots of my clips have been blowing up lately because Visa has been spamming them on YouTube, and they've been doing pretty well, to be fair. So well done to him. Visa's doing really well with the clips. He's doing super damn well. He's working hard with it. Visa's going to be shopping at M&S soon. He will do eventually. I remembered that you stream on Twitch because of the mass amount of clips that have appeared on my feed. Good! That's exactly what we need it to be. See? Marketing. Marketing works. Yay, capitalism. Josh, you once said that students like structure and mutual respect. What do I think about the schools implementing a system where kids get to choose when and what they learn? How many adults do you know that are disciplined enough to choose when and what they learn. Now imagine that those adults have the reasoning capabilities of a child. I know there was this thing with free-form parenting where they were like, my kid just does whatever they want to do all the time and that's going to give them freedom. No. There is a level of structure that is needed by a child. Honestly, how old are the students? I mean, if you say to a 10 to 12-year-old, hey, you can either sit and learn maths or you can play video games all day, most of them are going to play video games all day. I would choose that. If you give a child the choice between doing something they find fun right now and doing something that they find horrible that may or may not pay dividends in the future, I think a lot of them are going to choose the fun thing now. And we're seeing that in schools with phones. I have known people who have tried to advocate for children having complete freedom and doing whatever the hell they want to do literally all the time. And these people do not normally turn out to be the most balanced, stable individuals. Structure can help. Structure is often needed. Because if you give someone anything they want when they ask for it, you end up with a bunch of extremely entitled people. Delayed gratification is something that is difficult to teach the benefits of. I mean, what do you guys think? Should people be given what they want all the time? Have any of you ever known someone who was given everything they want all the time? I have. I've known people that were given what they want all the time. I've known those people. Utterly insufferable. They have a very hard time on... Yeah, they struggle to understand no. Would I like to try arena PvP when I reach 70? I fear I would be too good. How do I feel about the gamification of learning? I feel that if it's valuable to get attention, it's definitely got a place within the classroom. Applied to game theory to processes to keep kids engaged. Kids are not going to focus on you. Why would a child focus on what a teacher is saying when they have a device in their pocket that can give them access to all of human knowledge and activate the dopamine receptors immediately? Why would someone listen to something they find boring when they could replace it with something they find not boring? The question is, why would someone do that? Because until we can answer that, we actually don't know how we're going to affect learning. Are kids still forbidden from using their phones during class nowadays? In most schools, yes. However, that doesn't stop them. Forbidding a child from using their phone does not stop a child from using their phone. You may think, oh, but back when I was in school, if I was forbidden from doing something, I would absolutely not do it. Cool. Days have moved on. When a child simply says, I'm going to use my phone, and you say don't, and they say, well, I am, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to send them to the principal? They won't care. Unless you have a very good school, they will simply get sent back to the classroom and then they'll carry on doing it anyway. Detention? Great. They get to sit in a room and just use their phone. Oh, but they can't use their phone in detention. What are you going to do? Super detention? Send them home for the day? That's what they want. And then the parents are like, oh my God, I can't believe the kid's been sent home. The parents don't care. Take away the phone. Zonk, you can't do that. Can't do that. Kid's going to fight back. Kid's going to argue. Kid's going to make your day a living hell. If any of you in school have ever wondered why the nice parents were the ones that had to keep compromising and not the parents of the bully, it was because the parents of the bully kids often made life really difficult if you tried to deal with them at all. And it sucks and it's not right. But unfortunately, schools, teachers, admin, and principals will often choose to deal with something that makes the problem go away, not deals with the problem. So if you have two sets of parents, one of whom are very understanding, very nice, very easy to deal with, and one of whom are absolute arseholes, you are going to tell the people who are nice and easy to deal with the bad news. You are going to tell them to change. They are the people who are going to have to bite the bullet and do things differently. You know why? Because they're the only people that will. Unfortunately, the reward for being flexible is that you will be forced into the shape that you need to be. And teachers then have to ask themselves the question. They have a limited amount of time in the classroom. What's the best thing to do? Spend all of that time arguing with little Jimothy to get off his phone and thus ruin the lesson for the other 30 kids in the class? Or let him sit at the back on his phone doing whatever the hell he wants and focus on teaching the rest of the lesson? Because if you do that, your lesson's going to go smoother. And you know who you're going to piss off? You're going to piss off all of the kids that are sat there thinking, why am I not allowed to do that? You've definitely been a teacher. That is true. Unfortunately, you then have to put yourself into a situation where the well-behaved kids are the ones that get punished because they normally have the well-behaved parents, and they're the ones that you would rather deal with. Teach the ones that want to learn and leave the ones that don't out there. But then you get the well-behaved kids being like, well, why are the badly behaved kids being rewarded? You know what used to annoy me and still does? And I can understand something and still be annoyed by it. Did you ever notice, maybe you were this kid, did you ever notice that the kids that were well-behaved all the time often didn't get rewarded for being that? But the kids that were badly behaved most of the time did get rewarded whenever they behaved. You ever notice that? It's very annoying. You can have a kid that's an absolute arsehole for like 3 months and they have one good day and everyone is doting on them and giving them praise. The problem is that you have to encourage the behavior you want to see. And if a child is already giving you the behavior you want to see, don't encourage it. You don't need to. It's already there. As soon as behavior changes to what you want it to be, that's when the encouragement has to start. The problem with that is that what you're effectively doing is not recognizing the good kids constantly. Do I think kids would be more interested in school if education wasn't treated like an assembly line, instead self-taught efficiency? Maybe they gain more confidence. Absolutely. I 100% believe the education system would be far more beneficial to a lot of kids in it if learning was individual. The problem is that you then run into the issue of scale. You simply do not have enough teachers and enough time to give enough focus to each individual kid. You have hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, depending on the country we're looking at, children who need to be educated, and simply not enough teachers to be able to connect with them. Now, people are saying, why don't we use AI to do that? Thomas Hobbes, you just said use AI. One of the most important things that school teaches is not knowledge. It is societal interaction. It is the ability to understand the word no. It is the ability to focus on delayed gratification. It is the ability to interact and work and gel and ingratiate yourself into a collective, into a society, into a group, into a classroom. One of the good things that a good teacher does is teach someone how to be a good human being. Not necessarily how to learn maths, how to learn English, geography, where the countries are, how to do that. It is about teaching someone how to be a good person, because you can follow the example of a good teacher. And Fetragon has just said, fucking bullshit. Do you believe that? Because I believe some of the most important lessons that I ever taught were not actually specifically about education. They were about interaction. Your mother noticed this effect you're on about and allowed the behaved kids, jokers for little bad actions that went unpunished. That was their reward, a free pass. Potentially, yes. It should absolutely be the parents' job to do that. But kids aren't actually around their parents as much as they used to be. Teachers are responsible for the literal future of society. Fet, if I am teaching your child, I see them for a couple of hours a week. A parent sees them for the rest of that time. But do you know what sees them the entire time? The internet. Now that may sound like a boomer thing to say, but genuinely do think about this. The internet is the world's largest socialization hub. It is the biggest third space ever created, and it means that if we were to take the users of it as a country, cyberspace is simply a bigger country than any other country can ever or will ever be. A child is able to access information beyond what any teacher had access to 50 to 100 years ago. A child is able to access communities that have more extreme ideals than they would have had access to 50 to 100 years ago. Whoever spends the most time with a kid as they are growing up will have the most influence on them. It used to be parents, it used to be teachers. Now it's social media algorithms that give that kid what they want immediately. How do you teach someone the value of delayed gratification or the meaning of the word no when they are able to access any information immediately? Someone said, why do we not just give AI the power to teach kids? Consider this. I actually like the fact that a child can ask an AI algorithm a question and get a pretty basic answer. That's a cool thing. That's an interesting thing. The AI algorithm will never get annoyed at the child. It will never get irritated. It will never say, that's enough questions for now. It will never say, hey, let's do this together. It will never say, let's, take a break for a bit. It will just give the kid the answers they need immediately. But can you not see that learning to read body language is important? And if a child is asking the same question of someone again and again and again and again, that child needs to learn to read the body language of being able to understand, okay, I've asked enough now, I'm going to stop for a bit. Because if they don't learn to read the body language, what kind of adult do you think they're going to turn into? They're going to turn into a socially inept one. And while knowledge and education from AI is, of course, an interesting thing to look into, human interaction is going to be the thing that effectively divides people who are able to operate in teams and people who aren't. Reading someone's body language, reading facial expression, reading societal cues is important. It is never taught as a lesson in school, which is why we have so many online courses that you can now buy that try to codify it, that try to teach it. Why do you think so much of looksmaxing or the manosphere is about attempting to teach interaction, attempting to teach how you have to live, how you have to be? It's because that's the information that these people want, these people need. But this, of course, is focusing on far higher level things. The old saying is, it takes a village to raise a child. Now, that used to be an actual physical, practical village, because you would know the people that lived around you. You would know the people in your local area. I think that it still does take a village to raise a child. The problem is that the child now has access to every single village online ever. And some of those villages are not exactly a place you want a child to be raised, but until you are curating that, they will choose to go there. The future will be raised by whoever we give it over to. Who are we giving it to? Because right now it seems we're giving it to AI. The idea is a thing called a third space. The third space is neither the home nor the workspace, and it's where people go to socialize and hang out. Third spaces are being reduced. We are losing them. Third spaces are being replaced with the internet. It is a digital third space. It is the largest digital third space. Bunzi says, by the way, I quit WoW because I realized sitting here talking about how you had a bad experience is a really weird way to spend my time. And WoW isn't really a hard game, so I'm spending my time on other things now. Great. I'm glad you're finding other fun stuff to do. How do we recover from this? Is it possible? Will it take a generation? I think we will see the effects of kind of anti-socialization within about 100 years. There has never been a point in time since humans walked the earth when we faced problems in a digital world, so we cannot tell what this will cause. That's true, we have no idea. Absolutely nobody knows what it's going to be. Nate distracted me long enough to die. This is Nate's fault. God damn it, Nate. Yeah, the first and second place have become intertwined, the whole working from home thing. Plus, people just don't have as much free time. People are working longer. Third spaces are bloody expensive. Fine, I'm leaving. No, Nate, come back. Just, maybe my death was my fault. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And to loop this back to the conversation from earlier, I agree that schools should give every individual child individual learning. People should be able to focus their time on stuff. But let me connect this to a conversation we had earlier. 100 years ago, we wouldn't have had access to the internet, which means that your problems would have been local problems. The people you know would have been local people. Your life would have existed within a smaller, localized area, which means your mental, emotional, physical, societal energy was focused on simply a smaller physical section of the globe, which means you would meet fewer people, you would probably know them deeper, you would be exposed to fewer global problems, and you would have the ability to choose where your mental and physical energy went to within a much smaller scope. The problem now is we are living through a period in time where you have immediate access to the worst stuff globally immediately. You are now exposed not only to the worst thing happening in your local area, but the worst thing happening globally, every day, forever. And that is an incredibly emotionally overwhelming reality to live in. Never before, I mean, of course, we're exposed to the best as well. But even being exposed to the best means that we judge ourselves against that best. We are now forced to engage with the fact that we can discover the worst of the worst and the best of the best globally within a day, which is absolutely overwhelming. And no longer are we asked to give our attention to the things that matter to us locally. We're asked to give our attention to the things that matter to everyone globally. We discussed this a lot in our lab for the new generation of scientists, the incentives that currently drive scientific research. LMs help senior researchers produce more results, but the blunt of scientific training of the junior ones. We don't think we can solve this without changing the incentives. It's a complicated thing. I don't envy you having to do it. And I've said this before. I do not think, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I do not think that the human brain was designed to operate on a global scale. I think it was designed to operate on a much more local scale with individuals that it can know. I think, unfortunately, we have created a system that exposes us to the best and worst of everything in the entire world. And that's a tad overwhelming. We simply do not have the mental capacity to deal with the amount of things that people expect us to deal with. I mean, how do you guys think about that? For generations, we were only used to being in our community. It goes to Dunbar's number, absolutely. Dunbar's number, for those who are unfamiliar, is, I believe Dunbar was a French kind of sociologist, and the idea was there are a limited amount of people that you can actually know, as in deeply care about. Not saying that you don't care about everyone, but know to a degree that they actually have a viable, immediate effect on your life. And the number is between 100 to 150. And I think, unfortunately, we are living through a reality right now that is simply so expansive that we have spread our limited attention, mental and physical focus so thin across everything that we as individuals are losing our own minds to the idea of collective change. Why, when being exposed to the best and the worst, do we feel the effects of the worst more than the effects of the good? My assumption is the net effect of the internet's people's mental health. Winky, great question. I think that's been looked into by scientists, and you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong on this again, but I think it's because human beings simply remember negativity far more than we remember positivity, because avoiding the negative is often more beneficial than engaging with the positive, because there is a middle ground, there is neutral as well, there is stuff that doesn't really matter to us. We've got the negative, we've got the neutral, and we've got the positive. And to survive, we only need to engage with the neutral or the positive. But to make sure that we absolutely do not die, we need to make sure that we don't engage with the negative. That's why we know the poisonous foods pretty well. That's why the human body is able to say, hey, this is dangerous, don't do this. So we devote a huge amount of our primal caveman brain to what we need to avoid, what makes us scared, what makes us angry, what makes us unhappy. The problem is that you combine that with the modern reality of being able to just beam directly into your brain millions and millions of things that make you unhappy, scared, or make you feel negativity. You're almost overwhelming your caveman brain of, hey, we need to avoid this, frickin' everything. The problem is that the people that benefit from this know that they can abuse human psychology because negativity gets shared more than positivity. Negativity gets remembered, it gets focused, it gets clicked more. Why do you think my series is called Worst MMO Ever, not Best MMO Ever? It's simply got 50 times as many clicks. Unfortunately, the people that benefit from us being overwhelmed are the same people who have the ability to overwhelm us. There is an entire society an entire monetary system built on people being overwhelmed, insecure, sad, and unstable. Because the vast amount of stuff is sold to people who are insecure. You sell something to fix a lifestyle problem. Plus 11 damage spells, don't need that. So there are so many systems that benefit from you being unhappy. There are systems that benefit from you being overwhelmed. There are systems that benefit from you being insecure. And those systems will continue to make you unhappy and insecure. The news knows that it's overwhelming you. It knows that you don't need to know exactly what's going on the other side of the planet every single day. It might not affect your day-to-day, but it can tell you, and you will seek it out. Hate and anger sells. The system needs you angry. The system wants you upset. It wants you passionate about something, but then ideally not changing it. Eldorado says, do you know what I do whenever I see a tweet that makes me angry? Try to guess. What do you do? Elbardo, what do you do? Do you not reply? Do you turn it off? Do you look away from it? You block the account. Well done, you. You are not the norm. You're not the average. If you are able to tell me that if something annoys you, you just ignore it, great. You are not the normal. Bunzi, when you know that's a thing, why aren't you trying to make a difference? Because there are people being better like Markiplier. I mean, the fact that, what do you think Markiplier is doing that is helping? I'm not saying he's not, I just want to understand that we're on the same level with this. Because Markiplier is a great content creator. I want to understand what I can do. Do you mean, why am I not engaging in charitable events? Why am I not actively being involved in activism to change systems and to support people, that kind of stuff? Because that's a fair question. He tries to be positive and has made, and I believe still makes videos saying people need to follow their dream, but I mean like calling it the best MMO ever. Bunzi, the reason I make those videos is twofold. One, to entertain people who watch them, and two, to financially support myself. It is my business. It is my job to do that. It is not my job to make the world feel better. It is my job to entertain the world. If I can entertain the world and make people feel better, fantastic. But I also need to balance what benefits me with what benefits society. And to say that I don't need to do that would be disingenuous of me. So I need to exploit human psychology to the degree that allows me to do my job, while also trying to, within those videos, be positive. Because if you watch the Worst MMO Ever series, I believe you'll find that I am actually very positive about a lot of the games that I review and I get involved with. And even if I don't like the game, I will try and find something within the game that I like to praise. I will also say to always attack the systems and not the people. Attack the design, not the designers. That's an important thing to do. Markiplier is also much, much richer than me. Like, to orders of magnitude richer. We're talking millions and millions of pounds. What about people who feel relaxed in these streams? Yeah, is that helping? Absolutely. Now, of course, I am wealthier than other people. Mark is wealthier than me. Other people will be wealthier than him. It goes on to this suffering Olympics of who suffers the most. But to answer the question, why am I not doing more beneficial stuff for society in general, loops back to my previous point of I have a limited amount of time, energy, and focus. And if I choose to put that time and the energy and the focus into local concerns that directly affect me, instead of global concerns that I won't have a major part of, I'm going to choose to do stuff that affects me directly. That's a great example. Mouth, I always use that. You guys remember Coney 2012, where we all stopped child soldiers in the Congo? And it didn't do anything? I'm not saying that we need to be negative about that. I'm saying that we need to be focused and realistic about what we can and cannot do. This man went to Parliament last month to fight for consumer rights. What do you mean? Alexander, I'm not going to include that because, to be fair, I did spend one day just buying chocolate. Okay? Brussels, great chocolate. Let's be fair. Do you guys remember when we clapped for the NHS in the UK? You're welcome, by the way, NHS. Yeah, I was outside my door clapping, except I wasn't because that's performative bullshit. Now that's the exact example of being naive that I mean. That was pretentious and performative. Ever notice that essential workers are the ones that we demand keep going to work during dangerous times, but then as soon as they go back to work are the exact people we start disrespecting? Bro, I was working for shops back when you got called out by a random NPC for not Yeah. They were like, hey, why aren't you clapping? Because it's not going to do anything. I'm probably taking it wrong, but it's just answers, not just my problem. If the world fails, I'm just here. If everyone says not my problem, then it's no one's problem. This is not saying you should be better, just asking. The problem is, Bunzi, that what you're asking for is collectivist action, which I completely agree with. I believe that collectivist action is one of the most important things we can do. Collectivist action often starts with individual action, and then you join a larger group and a larger group and a larger group. And there's an old saying in the military, soldiers win battles, but logistics wins wars. Logistics and supply lines are some of the most important things that you can have. And when you get into activism, logistics and supply lines matter so much that if you don't have them, absolutely any activist ideal falls apart. That's very, very true. Genuinely. Logistics and supply lines win wars. That's the most important thing. So the problem is that when you have a bunch of activists who want to change something, who all agree that something should be changed, you have a load of soldiers willing to fight in a battle and not many people willing to do the boring logistical stuff that will be required to fix that. A protest is a great thing to have if you want to change something. Organizing a protest is a very boring thing to do. You need someone who is willing to organize. You need someone who is willing to do supply runs. You need someone who is willing to keep the supply lines open. People want to do the stuff that gets seen, because to a degree, that's the sexy thing that you get to do. Not many people want to do the boring stuff. Like in a PvP game, especially in Capture the Points, people want to go and kill the enemy. Not as many people want to stand on and capture the points, despite the fact that will normally be the most beneficial thing to do, because it isn't the thing that looks fun. I try to keep these chats as balanced and as fair as possible, but whenever I've spoken to anyone who really, really, really wants to change any system into a different system, they often don't seem willing to do the boring, dull work that's required after the change. People who have the passion to do the early game idealistic changes, brilliant. The problem is what happens once the change has been implemented and you now need to just maintain, because not that many people want to do the boring after stuff. I think it's because do what you want and try not to hurt others, but almost everything hurts others in some way. Bunzi, I agree as well. The problem is that the people that have the ability to organize people are the dangerous ones. There's an old saying, it comes from Game of Thrones, actually, and I think it's Robert Baratheon that says, what's more dangerous, 5 or 1? And then I think it's Ned Stark says 5, and Robert uses a hand gesture to say what's more dangerous, 5 or 1? And the idea is that the 1 is more dangerous because it is unified. It is united. Was it Cersei? That was Cersei that did it. Unity can create something far more powerful. Divide and conquer is a saying for a reason. So what I believe you will see, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is there are so many people who passionately want to change things, but they are all acting individually. And to a degree, individual action on a large enough scale can be effective. But when you get a couple of people who are acting as a group, as a collective, that is when you start to see real change. That's when you start to see real power being asserted. Dogs outside. That's when you see the big things. Now the question is, how do you get a lot of people to work together? How do you get a large amount of people to collectively act together? It's difficult to do. You have to unite them with 2 ways. Carrot and stick. Artogus, I actually don't think it's enough to have a common target or a common enemy. I think that is helpful, don't get me wrong, but I fear that you also need the carrot and the stick. You need the incentives to do something, and you need to disincentivize the behavior you don't want to see. If you want people to be somewhere at a certain place, reward them for being there, but then also punish them for not. And as horrible as that sounds, that's part of control. Here's something that I used to explain to people, and people didn't understand this when I explained it to them. I have worked with editors, and I have worked with various people in theatre for a long time. I had a load of people, back when I was doing full-time theatre, I had a load of people ask to volunteer at the theatre that I was working at. And I would say to them, no, we don't take on volunteers. And they would always say, why? And I would say, because if you volunteer to do something and then don't do it, I've got no recourse to admonish you for that. I've got no guarantee you're going to do anything. I've got no leverage over you doing it or not doing it. If you get involved in a voluntary basis and you do something, great. If you don't do that thing, what power do I have to get you to do it? The answer is, I've got no power at all. That's the problem. Volunteering is lovely, but it also relies on the volunteer doing the right thing. When you pay someone to do something, part of that payment is the safety net of what you can do if they do or don't do that thing. Now, Negative says guilt could be a thing. Yeah, I completely agree. Guilt could be a thing, but that's not enough. It's not enough to build that experience on. Now, some volunteers were lovely people, but I would say to them the danger of volunteering is that I've got absolutely no way of guaranteeing you're going to do the work that you say you're going to do. And that puts me into a dangerous position. That's a rather pessimistic look on volunteer work. I'm sad that's how you see things. Voltar, is it pessimistic or is it realistic? Because what I would then do is I would pay people to do the things that I need them to do. There are a lot of people who have done great volunteer work. The problem is that when that volunteer work requires you doing something that is essential, because if it's not essential, you give it to a person who wants to just do it for a bit. Respect and appreciation do go a long way toward keeping volunteers. They absolutely do. And there are many things that can only exist because of volunteers. That's true. The risk that you take when you work with volunteers is that their input is entirely based on their choice with no recourse if they don't make that choice. It is a business risk to give essential system power to people who are only there because they're volunteering to be there. Because you also need to have the legal risk mitigated. Volunteering is great. That's a great way of putting it. Volunteering is great if there are no irreversible consequences for the volunteer not doing the job. You manage ally volunteers at an LGBTQ+ community center. What's an effective way to motivate people to show up and sit behind a desk for 4 hours at a time? Pay them. Works really well. You are asking them to give a limited resource of their own, which is time. In return, you can give them a limited resource, which is money. Now, it might be the case of we can't pay them, they need to do it for the value of what they're doing. In that case, what you are giving them is the warm, fuzzy feeling of making a difference. And how would you punish them for ghosting? Stop paying them. I think one of the issues that we tend to bump into is we need this job done, but we don't have any reward for the job being done. Therefore, the job is going to be done by people who don't need a reward, which are either the people who are doing it idealistically or the people who are doing it idealistically and are able to support themselves some other way. I have complicated feelings about what you're saying. Small theatres don't survive without volunteers. I completely agree. Volunteers are necessary, but I would not give an essential business critical role to someone who is doing it in a voluntary capacity. Volunteers are great, but you have to understand what you are gaining in free labor, you are taking on in business risk. What if I have no money, but I want to make professional people do what I want? You've got to provide them something that they want. This is just I'm explaining the basics of barter and commerce. It doesn't necessarily need to be currency, but it does need to be a level of benefit to them. If you need someone to provide time and labor and energy and input, you need to give them something that is going to make them want to do that. And some of it could be you do it for connections. Some of it could be you do it for a good feeling. You do it for a good vibe. Some of it could be you do it because you're telling the person it's the right thing to do. And if they want to do that, that's absolutely fine. But what you will eventually discover is that the people that have the skills and the acumen to be able to be exceptionally effective in that role start to realize that their skills are in demand, because lots of people want them for their skills. And when lots of people want you for your skills, you're going to normally go to the place that will provide you with the best resource that you don't have. If you don't have something and someone offers to give you that thing that's valuable to you, you'll go to it. If what they're offering you is the chance to make a difference and that's value to you, you'll go and do that. But if someone else offers you the chance to make a difference and a big paycheck, you're going to go and do that. Just having a quick look and reading the chat, catching up with that. Working for a non-profit, you never considered paying volunteers. Well, I'm sure the person that owns the non-profit is probably getting paid for it. The people in upper management are probably making some money from it. Non-profit doesn't mean no income. It means no profit. Salaries don't count as profit. Salaries count as business expenses. A non-profit could make £10 million a year. If it pays the CEO and the C-suite executives a total of £10 million, it has not made profit. It has paid the salaries of those people. Profit has to go back into the company. That's true. But profit must also be the income left over after business expenses. And the business expenses can be as big or as small as the business needs them to be. A non-profit could make £10, it could make £10 million. Volunteer coordinators are also volunteers, so you don't have a budget. That's true, and I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing for you. But you have a level of skill and a level of input that is required and essential to maintain the structure that you are within. If somebody else comes along that has more skill than you do and says, hey, I'll get involved, but you've got to pay me, at some point it will be worth paying them. If you don't ask, you will not receive. That is very true. This is a podcast disguised as a WoW playthrough. That's what it is. Guys, and Sleepy says, we are constantly working on new ways to appreciate volunteers. End of season appreciation parties, program mentions, money. Money is a great way to appreciate people, because that is a resource that they can then spend at other places. I'm just having fun taking the other side. Okay, be careful being devil's advocate online, because it can end up being that thing of being contrarian just for the sake of it. The no logistics only ever been viable with a few enough numbers. I agree. Just want you to know that I liked school and listening to you brings me back. Always like your TED Talks. Oh, thank you, Sabi. That's very kind. I try to, obviously what we're talking about is often a very negative thing. But I think that if we understand something, then we can start to affect change around it. We need to understand what the issues are to understand what the solutions to those things could be. Do I think cannabis is illegal because it's harmful or because it threatens profits? Profits, obviously. Alcohol is far more harmful than cannabis, and alcohol is totally legal because they can tax it. The alcohol industry does far more damage, and yet that's fine in the UK. That's okay. Yeah, nicotine's worse as well. However, guys, scat, first of all, weird name. I'm not knowledgeable enough in those subjects to be an authority on them, but I do know that having a discussion about the benefits or the negatives of any kind of drug on Twitch is going to force you to engage with people who will be either firmly against or evangelically for that thing. And that's not going to be a productive conversation in any way. So I think sometimes whenever something comes up on Twitch that people get passionate about, one of the best things to say is, this is not the most productive place to have that conversation. That's a bit judgmental, Milk2 Sugars. Yes, I'm judging Twitch based on evidence of Twitch chat over many years. Do you believe it's wrong? Do you believe that my judgment is being passed out there without reason? But not everyone in Twitch chat, right? Milk2 Sugars, if you are unable to hear the phrase, we should not have this discussion right now because people online are not capable of having it, and your response is, but I'm capable of having it, I'm not talking about you individually. I'm talking about the collective nature of an online discussion not lending itself to a productive outcome of this kind of discussion. Do you understand that? I hope you can understand that. I'm not saying you as an individual are incapable of having this discussion. I'm saying right now there are 2,000 people online. No, not me. I'm sure there's more than one person doing the same thing. Probably Milk and Sugars, but you're intelligent enough to understand that there are 2,000 people in this chat right now. Do you believe that all 2,000 people are going to engage in good faith with this kind of discussion? I don't. I don't think they are. I think if you were to take all 2,000 people individually and have a conversation with them, you could probably have a pretty good conversation. I'm not saying even have the talk. Yeah, we won't have the talk at all. If you were to take each individual person, they would probably be quite reasonable. But when you stick someone online, people inherently change. It only takes one bad actor to make everything real awkward or real fast, because unfortunately people are driven very much by emotion. So who are you, Josh? How so? In the context of streaming, or what I do, or... Because I want to understand. I do genuinely want to understand. Is it who am I to police what people do and don't talk about? Within the context of this individual stream, I'm the person who is responsible for the stream. Being a personality online, yeah, I mean, it's not a societally important position, but I would say that within this conversation, it is partly my responsibility to curate the discussions that go on within this Twitch chat before they devolve into a baseless emotional argument. And I think that there are certain topics and certain elements that have historically been shown to not be conductive to the best online discussion. And I think that if we can navigate, if we can walk that knife edge of a good faith discussion that is not going to devolve into people effectively throwing talking points back and forth at each other, and instead is approached with the desire to actually understand, then yeah, we can have some absolute, phenomenally deep, interesting discussions. But there are certain topics that I know people will never approach with the desire to understand. And it's the avoiding of those topics that is essential. You've never understood why people behave differently online. I'm kind of the same everywhere, other than the obvious lack of consequences. That's what it is. It's the lack of consequence. I'm asking, who are you? When people see the stream, are you okay? Are you a streamed personality? I mean, there is a level of performance to any discussion. There's a level of performance to any Twitch chat, but I like to think that I'm not playing a character so much as I am potentially embellishing characteristics and traits that I already have, which is fake. I suppose it's fake to the element of it being hyper real. If you go to a party and you have a drink and you meet some people for the first time and you're cracking some jokes, you're having a good time, you're telling some stories, you're hanging out with some people, is that a fake version of you? Or is that simply the hyper real, energetic version that you've chosen to push forward? Can any of us be truly, genuinely real online? That's an interesting question. And if the difference is you are either real or fake, that's an extreme kind of black and white shift between this is you and this is not you. When what it could be, and what I think it more likely is this is who you are and this is how you choose to present who you are. I mean, you have to say, what is the real you? There's one streamer who got really heated with me because he still thinks he's some kind of authority on the Silent Hill series, and I politely explained to him why I found one of the games highly toxic. On Twitch, you find out how people, yes, see you in real life. It's a complex balance. When you put someone online, they don't have any consequences. They don't have any social guidelines. There's no rails that you need to follow for this. Give a man a mask and he will show you who he truly is. Milk 2 Sugars says, as long as the donations roll in. Actually, I've removed the PayPal donate button from underneath Twitch because I didn't feel the need to continue with that. But I also haven't asked you for money, and I haven't told people that they need to sub. There's not a sub-only chat. The Patreon is available for free. The YouTube videos are available for free. There's no benefit that the Patreons get. There's no benefit that the Twitch subs get. There's no benefit that PayPal donations did get people. If people want to pay me for this, great. That allows me to continue doing that. But if people don't want to pay for this and they still want to engage in it, that's fine. I'm not going to prevent people from doing that. No, but people on Twitch often ask for Prime and such. Great. but I haven't. If you have Twitch Prime, give it to the streamer that you value. If you have spare money, give it to the entertainment that you want to continue. But I've always said, and I will always say, support yourself and your own family first. Well, you're rich enough then. I am not struggling in life. I'm not a multimillionaire yet. I'd love to be one day. I'm not going to pretend that I wouldn't. That'd be great. To be able to phone my mum up and say, Mum, I made it, I'm a millionaire, would be incredible. That's one thing that I've always said to her since I was a kid. I said, Mum, I'm going to become an actor, I'm going to make £1 million. And she supported that. She absolutely supported that. And the ability to phone her up and say that I'd succeeded, that would be a really proud thing that I could do. But I want to do it the right way, and I want to do it a way that is being supported for the work that I create, and we supply that to people who... I want to give the entertainment work to people who value it. If I wanted to make more money, I would just push into gacha games instead. But I like MMORPGs, I like talking about philosophy, I like talking about the human condition, I like talking about sociology. I want to be able to have the deep conversations, but I think we all to a degree understand that we absolutely need to be sensible enough to maybe push away from the topics that are just going to devolve into arguments. Because those are the dangerous ones. Hey Josh, do you think Blizzard will ever get rid of the submodel for WoW? It would be a major moment if they ever do. I don't think they will. You're drunk right now. Okay, cool. Had your second drink. Am I right now my true self or someone else? Because you know what, that's a great question. I don't think anyone is ever their true self. What, is it a Japanese or a Chinese philosophy that we wear 3 masks? The ones we only show ourselves, the ones we show those close to us, and the ones we show society in general. Is it a Japanese one? 3 faces. The 3-face philosophy, the 3-face idea. The ones we see, the ones that close people to us see, and the ones that society sees in general. It's an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea. It's why we enjoy being alone. I mean, when I'm alone, I'm obviously different to how I'm with people. But as opposed to how different, I don't know. My only judge there is me, and I'm not a good judge of myself. You've been watching for a week, and what I've learned is you don't like coffee. Pretty much. Like, I'm fine with it now. Alan Wake genuinely changed that. When I was reviewing Alan Wake, I'm like, I've got to try this, because he just keeps drinking coffee constantly. And I'm like, it's fine. It's totally okay. Right, we were discussing the idea of why do people act differently online. Some people view online interaction as real. They view the people that they are talking to as real people. This is normally the kind of adults and grown-ups in the chat. Some people don't understand that the people online are real, and they engage with them in a way where they are the main character and everyone else is simply taking part in their story. And some people like to engage in online conversation as a form of therapy, but what they want to get from it is the ability to be someone that they aren't. As in, if they're weak in real life, they're strong online. If they're strong in real life, they're weak online. If they're kind in real life, they can be insulting online. You can engage with an element of life that you wouldn't normally engage with. For a moment, I thought Josh was going to do a plot twist and say he isn't real. I mean, that'd be great. Making AI do this would be... You know what, I don't want to react to videos on YouTube, but I did find a YouTube channel yesterday that makes AI videos about MMORPGs, and I watched about 5 minutes of it until I realized it was an AI voice and an AI script. And you know the problem was? The problem was it was really good. I was watching the video kind of going, yeah, this is really insightful. And then I'm thinking, nobody wrote this. And the reason I realized it was AI was because it repeated the same paragraph twice, which a human would have caught. And I'm like, oh my god. This is that. Yeah, full-on bamboozled, man. You see argument as PvP. You love the mechanics of it and trying to win it. Even if you lose, you still have fun, and you can learn by evolving from the loss. Nightcrawler, you are engaging with an argument as in there is a winner and there is a loser, which means there is a correct position and an incorrect position. When instead, you can approach it as... what can I learn from this? What can I gain from this? The problem is that if you approach online discussion as PvP, you are not wrong for doing that. That's how you want to do it. But can you imagine how incredibly emotionally draining it would get if every single online interaction was confrontational? Because so many people see online discussions, they see the value that they have as argumentative. That's why you put people online, you give them a mask, you give them anonymity, you let them argue, And people will show you the things they disagree with. People will show you what they hate. One of the important things is that you have to understand that sometimes people just want to be angry. I've said this before, and I've said this so many times. Online debates are not about finding an answer or any information. Online debates are about galvanizing each side against the other even further than they were before. Being angry and being hateful can be pleasurable to a degree. People who are angry all the time don't know how not to be. Do I think I've lost part of myself in my internet rise to fame, or has it increased the character? God, that's an interesting question. I think that I have become much more, almost like a pebble rolling down a river. The harder edges have been eventually just sheared off, and stuff that I would have argued back against years ago, I've been able to sit back and just go, you know what? I don't know enough about this to have an opinion on it. Someone else far more knowledgeable needs to know. Or if I do have information, I've said, well, in my experience or the people that I've met, this is what tends to happen. And I think that has probably allowed me to be much more chilled out with stuff. Maybe because I'm used to it. People can't understand people who are good-intentioned and they think they're acting badly. Merle, does this relate back to earlier when I said that I think people that care about everything are naive? I believe that the word naive was the insulting one in that sentence. I think people that are idealistic and care are great people. But I don't think just caring is enough. Oh, that's a nil. Do I think that's due to career or age? As I've got older, I think I've realized that as other people get older, they have less free time and less free energy to care about things outside of their world. I think there is a reason that activisms or activist collectives and ideologies recruit from universities. Not because the people in uni are easy to manipulate, I don't believe that's true at all, but because they've simply got more energy. You don't gather a motivated, energetic, focused, ideological fighting force from a group of people who are working 2 jobs, 9 to 5, 6 to 10. More energy. They're hungry for a cause. They're hungry for meaning. If you find someone who has energy and does not feel like they have meaning, you give them a meaning, you give them a direction, and they will go in that direction. You will give them a purpose. And I know this because I've studied this for a long time. The ideal person to join an ideological group is someone with a lot of energy, a decent amount of free time, and less direction in life. You give an ideological group someone that wants to do the right thing but doesn't know what they're doing, and they will give you a purpose. Content, happy people are not the people who are going to push into an ideological revolution. PM, that's a great thing. As you get older, you do pick your battles way more carefully. Way more carefully. So whenever I see someone who is young and ideologically driven, I don't see someone who is wrong. I see someone who is maybe not directing their energy in the most beneficial way. Nightcrawler says, you're hard-coded not to buy into shit. Try to sell you something, makes it less and less excited about the prospect of trying to have it. In that case, you're still being manipulative by marketing. If being shown something makes you like it and desire it less, your emotions and your actions are still being controlled by the outside forces of others, just in the opposite way. If you don't do something because somebody's told you to do it, that person still has power over you. You believe I've matured in a direction, seen other perspectives he maybe couldn't fathom truly. Yes. Do I come off as humble? Dunno. I mean, I probably come off as arrogant to a lot of people, humble to others. Us contrarians get marketed to differently. Absolutely. But there's still a way to market. There is still a market there. I feel that people that have the energy and the ideological inclination want a purpose. And when they don't have a purpose, they feel lost and directionless. Everyone does want a purpose. That's true. Human beings do need to have a purpose. Having one is beneficial. Is arrogantly humble a thing? I feel you're like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about being humble is I'm just so good at it. I'm probably better at being humble than other people. The question then is, at what point is that also an element of marketing, but for me? If I am aware of that, That is, you know what, Mordius, that is true. That is how people are radicalized. They want a purpose, they want direction. But Hooked on a Feeding puts something great up there. If you are able to think about what purpose your life needs, then you are to some degree living a privileged life. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the psychological ideal that there will be certain things that need to be fulfilled before they can be built on top of and more things fulfilled, the capstone of that pyramid is self-actualization. The idea that you can search through the life that you are living to find a level of meaning within it. Not many people are able to do that while they're also struggling day to day. Sitting and thinking about thinking is a privilege. It is relatively rare. Not many people are able to live a carefree life. People have lots of issues, people have lots of problems that they will have to prioritize over wondering, what is my meaning here? What is my purpose? Hey, the Ravager dropped. You were privileged with a free degree and everyone should have that. It wasn't free, it was simply paid for by other people. The same way that a lot of my free school meals were not free. They were paid for by taxes that other people paid. Those taxes were then distributed in the forms of salaries to the people who were cooking the food and the farmers that made the food and the distributors and the logistics that sent the food. Anything that is free has been paid for at some point. It has simply been found a way to effectively socialize it. And that's nice, and I agree with that. That's great. I had free school meals when I was a kid. I believe other people should have free school meals. If the taxes I pay go to provide free school meals for kids I will never meet, excellent. Fantastic. Taxes can be distributed better. I agree. I completely agree. But saying that someone has a degree for free means that at some point someone has to have built the physical building that you were in and maintains it. People have to be educated to be able to teach the thing that you are then learning. There is a structure that's built around it. And I've spoken about this before, that the systems that often work best for groups of people change based on the size of the group that you're trying to deal with. If anyone's not been here for this chat before, allow me to explain, because I think this is important to understand. I believe that different systems of governments, or governance, not government and governance, work better with different sized groups. Now, the definition of communism, I believe, is from each according to their ability to each according to their needs. Which means that on a small enough scale, a lot of people would benefit from a communist collective, such as the family. Mum and dad go to work, they provide for the kid. Sounds great. That right there is a level of communism that works. When in a small enough scale, it works. The problems occur when you expand the scale, the amount of people outward. Because for a system that relies on personal input and personal gain to be varied person to person, you need to be able to, on a humane level, see the effect that you're actually having. You need to be able to see the benefit that your extra work is giving. Because if you can see the benefit that your work is giving, you will be inspired to continue doing it. Once there are too many people within this system that you simply cannot see them, resentment, which is a natural human thing, begins to build up. You are putting extra work in, and someone somewhere is benefiting it, but you're not seeing it, and you might not know them, and you know what? You might not even like them, but you're benefiting them, and that will breed resentment. That's a great way of putting it. Orange Freeman, with my family, I'm a communist. With my close friends, I'm a socialist. At state-level politics, you're a Democrat, higher levels Republican, and the federal level, Libertarian. If that's how you want to see it, that's great. Different levels of systems work on different sizes of groups. So in a system where everyone knows everyone and everyone is able to freely interact, communism works really well. On a system where you might not meet everyone, but you are still going to engage and enjoy the same infrastructure, socialism can work quite well. The problem is always the humans. The problem is the people. Merle says, China prosecutes rich people who commit crimes, but other countries don't. I don't know anywhere near enough to have a valid discussion on the Chinese Communist Party. I don't believe that it is the utopia that the internet will make it look like, and I don't believe that there are no problems in that country. I also believe, Merle, and I hope you're intelligent enough to understand this, that blanket praise or blanket criticism of any large enough group is going to get you immediate pushback from any discussion online. I hope that everyone is able to understand that. If you say, this is better because of this, no. So Merle, while you may agree with many things that a system is doing, if you are consistently praising that system for being better, people will see it as endorsement of everything the system does. It is very important that you understand that you need to be able to be critical of these systems. Would you agree and would you understand that you need to be able to be critical of these systems? Because being critical of how a system works and who is in charge of it and how it runs is one of the fundamental ways that we can affect the system and then change it. Okay, cool. You agree. You need to address every aspect. Excellent. And Merle, you must also then agree that when a system prevents you from critiquing it, it is potentially a bad system. Now, I'm sure that everyone in this Twitch chat is suddenly going to turn into a geopolitical expert, because that's just what seems to happen whenever we have a discussion about anything. People suddenly are an expert on that thing. But it's totally okay. I need you guys to understand that it's totally okay to say, I don't know about that. Merle, do you understand how the internet works, Merle? Do you understand that yes, you can absolutely be those things? I think you're going to the extremes. You're absolutely going to the extremes, which is a dangerous place to have a conversation from. You're an expert, trust me, you're an engineer. I would trust you more than most politicians. Merle, I understand that you have your problems with capitalism. But just like you said, and just like we agreed that systems can learn things from each other, the capitalist system can learn certain benefits from a communist system. And a communist system can learn benefits from a capitalist system. Because capital is the idea that you get paid a currency which itself is a value of work. The currency you get paid is a value of work that at some point you have put into the system of collective social use, that then you can trade with someone else who is able to trade it with someone else. And effectively it's a system of barter and commerce that all connects together. The problem is humans. Okay, well, it may do. What you have a problem with is you don't have a problem with the idea of a system of barter and commerce. You have a problem with the idea that there are people who have exploited that system for personal benefit, which means that you have a problem with people taking advantage of other people. And you know what? I have a problem with that as well. You don't hate the system. You hate what the system can become if immoral, evil people take over it. The problem is that any system is potentially able to fall victim to that. People think that you can have a better system that itself becomes incorruptible. You can't. You absolutely cannot have an incorruptible system when humans are involved in it. Every large system needs checks and balances against itself becoming corrupt. The irony is that the people who are able to put in the checks and balances will simply put in checks and balances that they themselves control. People have been exploited ever since someone realized they could do something and make somebody else do something for them. And I think one of the biggest problems is that we exist in societies and collectives that are just far too big for humans. We could live in a theoretical utopia and someone will try to take control of it. Check in with the people that are close to you, that are local to you, that you can actually talk to and affect. Check in with the people that you want to support. It is very important that we give our energy and our time, limited energy and limited time, to the people that we want to support. Josh, what is my take on the universe of Star Trek and their approach to life and how they live in the system? That would be ideal. That would be absolutely ideal. The reason I love Star Trek is because it shows the human ideal. And it puts people in an aptitude position. The idea of Star Trek is to put people in positions that they are uniquely suited to. I'm not trying to fight with all my comments, just discussing ideas. Merle, I appreciate that you have ideas, but what I need you to understand is that some ideas are risky to discuss online. This does not mean that they don't need to be discussed. It means that they need to be discussed with a focus on the outcome, not a focus on the conflict. The reason I love Star Trek so much is because they exist in a post-scarcity society, where anything that anyone needs, they are able to get. But this does not mean that everyone is able to do everything that they can do at any given time. If you work on a starship, you have a job, you are not a volunteer, you are an employee, which means that you are given a certain aspect of life. You're not necessarily paid a salary because they live in a post-scarcity society and money isn't exchanged. But they still have a system that rewards them with a life. You get people that do things for the enjoyment of it, but you will get people that are starship captains, but you will also get people that work in the engine room, that want to do that. The question is, will someone who is working in the engine room and only getting 1 day off a week eventually start to resent someone who works as a waiter in 10 Forward, who is simply working 4 days a week and effectively having a similar life? Well, at some point you have to realize the people who are working the harder jobs are doing it because they want to. So there is a famous moment where someone said it was either to Patrick Stewart or to the writers, why doesn't Picard wear a wig? And their answer was, I don't think they would care about baldness at that point. So it was this idea that Picard was a bald captain, but nobody cared. Nobody in that society would either covet or mock that, because the idea was that there were more important things. Star Trek The Next Generation is an entire show about human self-actualization and discovery, which is why I love that. I also think the Borg were far scarier when they didn't have a queen. The question is, would that system work in real life? You have to ask, would everyone be on board with that system if they have to do work that they don't necessarily see the benefit of? Would you work extra hard if you knew that it benefited a society that you would never be a part of? Which Star Trek film to start watching Star Trek? Start with The Next Generation. Season 1 is rough. I think you can honestly just start with Season 2. Season 1 is good if you want to have a foundation of who the characters are and you want to see Tasha Yar. But if you just want to see what kind of Star Trek was about, you can start with Season 2. It's got some good episodes, but what I would say is, if you enjoy Seasons 2 onwards, go back and watch Season 1. Merle says, under capitalism, you work for the profits of someone richer than you. That depends unless you are in control of the capital. Because if you're the owner of the company, the person benefiting most is you. Merle, can I ask you an honest question here? And I don't want to distract from the rest of Twitch chat, who clearly want to talk about some other stuff. Are you here because you want to change my mind about the systems? Are you here because you want information on other systems? Or are you here because you have an emotional investment in the success or the failure of one system and would like me to validate that? Do I like Stargate? I've not seen Stargate as much, to be honest. I've not seen Stargate anywhere near as much. The film was good. The original film was great. Stargate SG-1 had some weaker spots, much like the TNG Season 1. I will get into it. I will get into it at some point. That is a great quote there, Sama. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they will never sit in. But unfortunately, we seem to have a society where the old men would rather strip mine the planet for what they can get and then move on. It's a generation of fuck you, got mine, as they say. What you are asking for is for everyone to be collectively focused. And I agree that if everyone can be collectively focused, brilliant. That'd be fantastic. The danger is that if everyone is collectively focused, who stops people who are going to go against this? Everyone? Does everyone stop this? Because if everyone stops this, you're asking people to act as a community police force against themselves. That's where the danger comes in. Josh, how does one work on general cynicism? Are you saying that you are cynical and you would like to not be? Because that's a great way. Genuinely, that's the first of all, self-reflection is the important thing. In that case, let me ask a genuine question. And if the answer is yes, we've actually got something to work on here. Do you actually feel a level of pleasure from being cynical? Because it can be addictive. Have you guys ever found that? Anger, cynicism, disliking things, hatred, annoyance. You ever met those old men that are never happy? Some old man in a British pub somewhere will complain about literally everything. Comfort. Cynicism is addictive. It's comfortable. You feel good while doing it. And that is dangerous. Because if you feel good while doing it, you're going to keep doing it. It is, on some degree, a drug. So you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Are you doing it to feel better? Are you doing it to feel something? Are you doing it to feel like you feel helpless personally, and one of the ways that you justify not being able to help is just by complaining about how bad everything else is? Because lots of people do that. Lots of people think, oh my god, the world sucks. I am therefore going to complain about how much the world sucks, and in doing so I have referenced the world sucking and I've taken the responsibility off myself. Cynicism is alluring. It absolutely is. But if you're doing it as a way to justify and to almost remove the scary factor of the world, isn't idealism the opposite of cynicism? Putting ideologies in either support or opposition to each other is a risky thing to try and do, because you end up with people taking the thing that they agree with most and then just arguing in favor of it constantly because they feel they have to represent their team. They become a champion of an ideology. Cynicism can be self-care if you're annoyed at something. But if you're doing it as a way to justify the crap world to yourself, if you're doing it as a way to alleviate your worries about the world, then you're actually using it as a level of escapism. It's okay to recognize the negativity in something, and it's okay to recognize your own limitations and say, right, well, I can't do this, but I can do that. And it's okay to think, the world sucks. But it's also very important to think, right, there are some parts of this that are beautiful. There are moments that I have that are beautiful. And it's important to recognize and resonate with those. Because you can become a lightning rod for the emotions you put out into the world. You can become an amplifier for what you want to do. You can amplify what you put out there. Cynicism is on the rise for young people. Why do I think that is? Because young people have followed the life path put down by the generations previous, and they have been promised a certain outcome, and it has not happened. If you go to college and get a degree, you'll get a house, you'll get a job, you'll be able to secure a family, you'll be able to go on holiday, you'll be able to buy nice things. If you follow the system and trust the system will benefit you and work for you, and you'll be part of it. And they have done all of that. And they cannot afford a house, they cannot afford a holiday, they have to work 2 jobs, they cannot afford insurance, they cannot afford medicine, they cannot afford to buy nice things. Young people are cynical because they have been sold a lie that success is bred through hard work, when it's not. Success is bred through exploitation. And you are not paid based on how hard you work. You are paid based on how hard you are to replace. And unfortunately, because there are simply far more people out there than there are jobs going for them, everyone is becoming easier and easier and easier to replace. So people are cynical because the routes that they have been given to go through life are not getting to the destinations that they have been promised they would get to. And I can completely empathize and understand about why they are so bloody annoyed with it. We do not live in a meritocracy. There is a huge amount of nepotism that will benefit lots of people, and unfortunately, those people are often not you. Is there any point of being a good person when it sounds like it leads to an early death? That is something you have to decide for yourself. Why be a good person if it doesn't get you any rewards? Were you being a good person for the rewards, or were you being a good person because you can't not be? I get a lot of questions from a lot of young men who ask about life advice in general. And one of the phrases that I hear the most is, "I'm a nice guy." And that phrase I normally hear in relation to, "So why doesn't the girl like me?" And I've said, why are you being nice? Because if you're being nice in order to get a certain reaction, you are not nice. You are treating this as transactional. A nice guy doesn't care if the reaction that they get is not the one that they were hoping for. They will respect it and understand it. Being nice is not something you do in order to achieve an end goal. It's a process that you go through because that's who you are. You don't see what comes from being nice. It makes good friends and a good relationship, and then it makes sense, but then I feel like I'm still not a good person. Either that or it's all fake. Ask the beggar if they care where the coin came from. If you think you're an awful person, but you're doing as many nice things as you possibly can, and you're trying to prove that you are doing that through a nice thing, if you're putting nice energy out into the world, if you're treating people in a nice, respectable way, we are who we pretend to be. Don't be a nice guy. Be a good man. That's the advice. Many good people are not nice. The word nice implies that everything you do has to always be supported and you never make people unhappy or upset. Whereas sometimes you need to do things that make people unhappy or upset. Shouting at a child to not pick up a red-hot burning pan on the stove is not a nice way of treating that child, but it is an essential thing that you need to do to ensure their safety, that you have a responsibility to do. You never mean to make people upset or annoyed. If you aren't willing to make people upset or annoyed, then you aren't willing to stand up against people doing things that you don't like. You need to upset and annoy people doing things that you cannot agree with. The way that we navigate these moments in life, these confrontations, is one of the reasons that I think the schooling system fails. Is because learning to do that is far more valuable than learning how to find X and Y. I'm someone who the US educational system failed, and at the time, the point of unquestionable abuse. It's my 34th birthday today. Happy birthday! Congratulations, man! You don't feel any closer to finding yourself. Everything is fighting for your attention, and you're a creative. Everything is fighting for your attention. That is a great way of looking at it. Why do you think everything is fighting for your attention? Because I agree. I think it is. Because your attention is one of the most valuable resources that we have. We live in an attention-based economy. It is profitable to get your attention. Sounds more like was our parents told and their parents, young people can't behave, or young'uns like that. I mean, BTD, every single generation thinks every single generation that comes after them is incapable. I don't believe the generation that comes after me is incapable. I believe they've been put into a different playing field. I don't think the generation that comes after me are incapable of playing the game. I think they have unfortunately been given a different game to play. Okay, we're all here. Cool. I think they have been given the rule book to one game with the rewards of that game. And then, unfortunately, they played the game by the rules they were given, and it turns out the result wasn't what they expected. I mean, that's every generation. I don't think that the younger generation are incapable. I do think that they have been given a much more difficult game to play. I mean, if you consider this, guys, look at the very first season of The Simpsons. The very first season of The Simpsons was meant to be a joke about what society could be. And it still showed a father and mother on a single salary supporting a car and 2 children and a nice house in the suburbs. That was, at the time, considered achievable. Now, how many people do you know that work one job with enough security? 2 cars and 3 children, sorry. Bunzi, if your parents are able to work one job and support 2 cars and 3 children and a nice house in the suburbs, they are doing very well. You hazard a guess that it could be done if you made it as a nuclear power plant engineer. Probably could, but those jobs are definitely few and far between. You have a genuine question about MMORPGs. Go for it. Still in the game, yes, people do leverage debt in order to achieve the lifestyle they want instead of having the capital to do it. I understand that. But the cost of things has gone up and the wages have not. I believe that would be a fair thing to say. I've not watched too much Modern Simpsons. I'm sure it's still fine. I think there's a moment when you realize the inequality and stuff, when you watch Friends and you realize, how do they afford a massive open plan apartment and always have free time to go to a nice coffee bar that's in a nice part of the city? Like, these people are remarkably wealthy to be doing that. How is Joey... It was the 90s, yeah. That's one of the things. I think you realize that you've grown up when you watch the very first Home Alone movie and ask, what the hell did Kevin's dad do to afford that house? That, to me, that's the most unbelievable part of the whole film. Like, you watch the first Home Alone movie and you're like, these people are minted. Yeah, huge house. Huge trip. Right, what was the question about MMORPGs? Let's swivel back to that. You are making me feel like I live in a privileged bubble. You might do. You very much may do. If something like World of Warcraft is one of the biggest problems that you have to discuss, you absolutely do. We all do. Am I aware of Guild Wars 1 Reforged? Yes. Haven't played it yet, but I'm aware of it. It is very important to recognize the privilege that we do or do not have. Now, that's not important. It's not needed to be able to say, and therefore you have no problems. One of the sayings that I hate the most is when someone says, you can't be sad, there are people that have it worse. That's disingenuous. Because the opposite would be, you can't be happy because people have it better. I think that's also disingenuous. You can have a lot and also be sad. You can be very privileged and still have problems. There may be problems that other people will not have. That's fine. But you do not need to feel bad about still having human problems, about still having issues, about still, facing challenges. More of the fact people can't afford houses and have super small problems that make their life. I wanted to talk about WoW, but it's not my number one problem. Thought it'd be a cool topic. You have friends buying houses and having good lives. Good, and I'm glad for them. And I'm glad for you to be able to have that. You want people to be able to have nice stuff. But it is important to be able to sit back and be like, you know what? There's a hell of a lot of benefit here. And I don't want to feel that it's very difficult to engage in any kind of us versus them discussion, because you do run the risk of at some point becoming them. So instead, I think it's much more beneficial to talk about systemic changes and safeguards that we are able to put into place, instead of simply demonizing people. People find problems with whatever they don't have. I'm going to post your question again. Wild Salts. What, in my opinion, a negative aspect about OSRS? I enjoy it too much and loving the nostalgia for me to make it completely objective. Old school RuneScape's biggest problem would be its price increase, because it is now having to compete on what effectively is a level playing field with the same price as Elder Scrolls Online or Guild Wars 2 or World of Warcraft. And RuneScape's biggest benefit, biggest strength, was the fact that it was cheaper. RuneScape never had to compete on this playing field because it wasn't pricing itself to be on this playing field. One thing that people often don't understand is that all human life does go through a level of experiencing problems. The thing is, they only become problems when you can't solve them with the resources that you have. If the problem that you encounter can be solved with money, and you have money, it's not really a problem. It's just a thing that you deal with. Why can't we just give everybody 5 times the money? Solved immediately. Straight away solved. If you have money and you come up against a problem that can be solved with money, it's not a problem to you. It's simply a thing that can be purchased. If you have a hell of a lot of free time and you come up against a problem that needs time to solve, you can solve it. If you don't have a lot of free time, you could not solve that problem. And sometimes people that have a huge amount of money don't have a huge amount of free time. So what they do is they trade their money for time. Let's say that you need to clean your house and you have a day free. Cool, spend the day cleaning your house, if you're lucky enough to have a house. Let's say your apartment, your room, wherever you live. You'll spend that time cleaning it. Let's say that you literally don't have the free time. Well, at some point then you can just pay someone to clean your house. So what you're doing is you're trading your money for someone else's time. Problems are about using the resources you have to solve them. And so when people say, oh, I don't have any sympathy for that person, they are incredibly wealthy. While I absolutely understand that there is a level of dehumanization that goes on when someone acquires a certain amount of wealth, and again, I think there is no ethical way to become a billionaire, there will still be problems that millionaires or multimillionaires face that they are simply unable to solve with money. And when people turn around and go, well, you're rich, you shouldn't care about it, and I'm not defending exploitative practices here. I'm addressing the idea that there are problems that cannot be solved with money, and there are problems that can. And there are a lot of problems that can. And what I think we tend to see is that people with money are spending a huge amount of it to try and solve problems that money can't solve. Which is why it's terrifying to people that have money that there will be problems they can't buy their way out of. What can't be solved with money? Genuine question. That's a good question. One of the things that can't be solved is people genuinely liking you, because you will never know. Now that is a very small problem. It is a very small, tiny problem. Pass me the tiniest violin. I get that. But eventually you will have to ask yourself, does anyone I know like me? Or would everyone leave as soon as the money leaves? And you will never know the answer to that. Now it's a small problem, but it does exist. Josh, you're a 31-year-old man whose favorite MMO is Wizard 101. How do you solve that problem? You don't. You embrace it. It's a great game. A narcissist doesn't ask such questions. I mean, yeah, they wouldn't. And unfortunately, part of the reality is there are many people in this world who are remarkably rich, remarkably powerful, remarkably successful, and also just arseholes. The problem with humanity is pretty much the humans. Here's a genuine MMO question. Do I have any strong thoughts about player-driven economies? Some people have a black pill moment where they realize a handful of players or guilds can manipulate a whole economy. Yeah, they've always been able to. That's never not been the case. Ever. Anyone who ever says that they're really excited about a player-driven economy because they think it's going to be open and fair, and they don't realize that actually what it will mean is a few extremely hardcore players and their guild will simply control the economy of a server, have never taken part in a game with that kind of server. That's all that's ever happened. As soon as you give people a level of power and control over the in-game economy of a game, you will get people who have nothing better to do than exploit and control and own the economy of that game. Cyber says, not sure that's true. My understanding of narcissists is they're very concerned about whether people genuinely like them because that feeds their ego. They're only concerned about the right people liking them, the people they believe have value. A narcissist doesn't necessarily care if someone that is beneath them or cannot benefit them or does not mean anything to them likes them. They want people in positions of power to like them, because that is the validation. They don't care if someone they see as beneath them matters. Empathetic people are often concerned about others, but there is also a dangerous level of empathy where people will care about others to the detriment of themselves. And that is also a dangerous thing to be able to do. Setting yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm does not work long term. Sticky says, you write really ephemeral short stories and are told you're a good writer by many. Good, well done. Nice way of doing it. You can never sit down to make something lasting and always being told, just do this thing for 15 minutes a day. Any tips for managing to practice? I feel like I need some kind of trick to it. Sticky, your life is going to pass whatever you choose to do. How you choose to spend your time day to day, you have to take into account, do you like the moment to moment? And do you like the result the moment to moment might produce? Unfortunately, at some point you will get the answer, sit down and do it, because if you don't, somebody else will. If you like doing something for the process of doing it, regardless of whether someone tells you you are or aren't good at it, sit down and do it. If you are physically incapable of doing that, talk to a doctor about the fact you are physically incapable of doing that. Sometimes the best motivation advice will not be able to out-biology whatever your brain is doing. And it's very important to match motivation with biology. You use your Was It Any Good series when you work out. Watch them all. Any new ones being made? Yes, I'm working on... The next one is Icewind Dale. It is being worked on, it's just slow because I'm playing a lot of WoW at the minute. Still in the game, I would disagree with that. Still in the game, can I ask you an honest question? Are you being edgy with that, or do you genuinely believe that a woman's place is to be seen and not heard? Do you believe that we need to go back to a 1950s style repression? I need to understand whether you're trying to be edgy with this, or whether this is like a genuine, actual feeling that you've got. Because to me, the idea of feminism is the equality of the sexes. The idea of extremism, either misogyny or misandry, is the elevation of one to a position of complete authority, which I would also disagree with on both counts. I think people dislike the word feminism because the word itself is gendered, which means that as soon as you take a gendered word, it almost comes across as if you are trying to elevate the gender of that word to the dominant power. Women were statistically happiest in the 1950s. You haven't researched the origins and the real intention of feminism then. Okay, cool. Can I ask you another question? Just straight up question. Still in the game. Are you a woman? I think I know the answer, but I need to check. There are lots of books about it. There are also lots of books about Lord of the Rings. Doesn't mean it's real. I'm going to assume you are not a woman. Now, I don't think this conversation is going to go anywhere productive, and I don't think that we are going to see eye to eye on this. Which means I have to ask the question. Of course not. I'm the most qualified to talk about why Rockefellers, Rothschilds pushed feminism onto women who didn't want to vote and anything else. Right. Gotcha. I see. You are the most qualified. Oh, you're not the most qualified. Okay, gotcha. I see you're not the most qualified to talk about this. Gotcha. So... the idea of the equality of human beings, I would say, is a pretty good idea. There is, and again, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong because you've probably read and researched this more than I have. There is the idea that when households were split into one full-time working person and one, at the time, effectively stay-at-home wife, then you could only tax whatever was being earned, which was the one working person. When the idea of, hey, women should be able to work too, was pushed, a lot of people believed that it was because of the idea that if you have two at-home working people, you can then tax people twice as much. And homes can cost twice as much, and things can cost twice as much, and you can in fact make twice as much money because you're not tapping into the working market as well as you should be doing. Does that make sense? Now, yeah, many things can be true at the same time. I believe that there is absolutely a monetary benefit to the corporations of making more people work. I believe there is also a societal benefit to the general structure to be able to give people of either sex equal say, equal rights, and equal voting. I think we can agree on that at least. Ashuvax, first time chat. Where is the equality when men are drafted? You know what? That is a good question. And I think that question will then link back to, first of all, I'm not active military at the minute, which means I was civilian contracted to the military many years ago, but my knowledge is now completely out of line with whatever the current thing is, so you need to talk to somebody there with that in. I think that then links back to the idea of from each according to their ability to each according to their need, which pushes back into people do what they are able to do. And I think that there is no way that we can have this conversation online that is going to be beneficial. Nightcrawler, where is the equality when 90% of garbage removal people are men? Are women not able to sign up for that job? I mean, if women aren't able to sign up for that job, let me know. Okay, we seem to have a lot of edgelords that have immediately made themselves known. And I need to ask some genuine questions of people here. It is Saturday, that's true. I forgot that it was Saturday. It's a late Saturday stream that school's over. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on stuff that is given to them by a lot of content creators. I don't think I've ever met someone who has actively been against equality that I would like hanging out with. And you know what, Demonic, you are right. I am giving a lot of people here who have a lot of what I would consider, to be honestly, quite abhorrent opinions, a lot of grace. The problem is the internet in general. Which means, again, I shouldn't need to feel responsible for this, and you shouldn't be responsible for this either. If there are people who have remarkably archaic views, and I say, hey, I disagree with you, you know what they will do? They will search for a community that do agree with those views, and they will simply perpetuate them. Still in the game, what kind of equality? Because men and women aren't biologically and physiologically equal. Biologically, I agree. But I believe there is also a point where people are using that instead of a way to work out the aptitude for the best choices, they're using it as a way of repression. And I think that the important thing is that we have equality of input into the society that we are belonging to, and we have equality of input and equality of attempt, if you will. The very important thing, Tan, and I agree with that as well, the important thing is that there are groups within society who have been downtrodden, who have been abused, who have suffered under the level of any kind of societal oppression. And those groups are then given a huge amount of support and resources, which means that the groups that are not being given support and resources then often feel undervalued. And the problem is that when you are used to privilege, equality can feel like oppression, which is a saying that I did not make up. I read that somewhere many years ago, and I agreed with it. If you are used to being the dominant privileged power, when you are asked to share a level of power and a level of authority and a level of input that you've got, you start to feel that you have had a level of reduction within that power. So what I think a lot of people see is, oh, but men are suffering as well. And you know what? I agree. I absolutely, completely agree that there are aspects that men are suffering with, which is why I think it's very important that those guys who are hurting, those guys who are lonely, those guys who are suffering are able to be supported in a way that shows them support is important. If you turn around and say, I'm not going to support you because other people are suffering worse than you, what you do is you simply drive a wedge between that person and the person they're supporting, the person you're supporting instead. And how would that happen? You want an example? Exactly. An example about what? How I would show support to a male-focused problem or a female-focused problem? One thing that I would not do that I think is not necessarily beneficial is if someone comes into this stream, I would hope that it is a place where we can help people understand that hatred is not going to help, and pushing people further away into extremist viewpoints they already hold is not beneficial. Suffering isn't a competition. That's true. So one thing that I think happens is when someone says, hey, we should support these people, people straight away, okay, but who's coming here for that? A lot of people, Milk. People straight away push back with people and say, oh, but this group of people suffer in this way, and this group of people suffer in this way. Milk Two Sugars, you're the MMO guy. Milk, is this your first time in the stream? Because if this is your first time in the stream, you may not be familiar with the fact that before focusing on MMORPGs, I was a teacher. And one of the most important things to me is being able to connect with people and talk about issues that they face in their day-to-day life. We cannot start grading the suffering, and we cannot simply start saying that you can't support this person or this team or this demographic or this ideology because these people are suffering as well. What kind of teacher? I was a drama teacher. This is just like a podcast with an MMORPG in the background. Finding common ground and bringing people together does help people, team up. Unfortunately, a lot of people that benefit from you being unhappy will do whatever they can to keep you from connecting with people. People that want you to hate a certain demographic benefit from telling you why you should hate them. They absolutely benefit from keeping you from finding common ground, from keeping you connecting with them. Echo chambers become groups of people screaming into the void. And when you are doing that for recognition, the only way to be recognized is to scream the loudest. Which means an echo chamber becomes a self-sustaining prophecy of people being angry and having to be angrier and angrier and angrier to be recognized as being the angriest, which itself is validating everyone else's anger. You know, people, it was someone said earlier that I was just the MMORPG guy. I totally get that. Since the internet, there has been a huge social and cultural divide. Milk, I completely agree, but you do understand that you've just contributed to that by saying you're just the MMO guy. So I'm talking to people about stuff that is affecting them and is important and is emotional, and people want to be able to engage with in a way that they don't feel judged about engaging with. And then people are coming in and saying, why are you bothering to do this? There's no point doing that. And almost continuing this us versus them dichotomy that's been going on for a while. If you have an open mind toward other people, they become more inclined to listen to you. If you give pushback on every single thing this guy says, regardless of the fact he's been patient, people become less inclined to listen to you because it feels like your takes are more emotional than logical. I completely agree. I agree with that, Shupati. The process of changing someone's mind is not an attack. You do not beat someone into agreeing with what you agree with. It is very difficult because if someone doesn't like you as a person, then they will disagree with any stance that you have on principle of not liking you. If you want to convince someone of a stance that you have or an idea that you hold, then that person needs to like you. Because otherwise, you are not just dealing with their logical understanding of your point, you are dealing with their emotional connection to you. And most people will focus on the emotional connection more than they will focus on the point you are making. So when someone comes in here and says something that is most people would consider a viewpoint or an ideology they disagree with, we have to ask ourselves, what do we do? Immediately kick those people out and force them into connecting with a society who are going to continually reinforce that belief, which means they will ingrain it within themselves? Or do we try and engage with them in good faith and show why that viewpoint may have complexities to it? Does that work? Yes, I believe it does. I believe that if someone wants to change, they can. Mostly it's still not going to happen, even if you're trying to be as polite as possible. That's fine. Mostly is the key word there. If someone comes to me and says they believe in something that I think is damaging or dangerous or wrong or hurtful, and I say you're wrong and kick them out straight away, all I've done is validate that they are now no longer welcome in a certain community, and therefore they will find a community that does welcome them, which is a community that already believes what they believe. You're perpetuating the cycle. If you turn around and say, hey, I don't agree with that or believe in that, but why do you? Then I can understand them. Then we can maybe change. Then we can connect. If someone is against someone else's rights, they don't deserve much patience. Demonic, that is true, and I get why you're saying with that. The thing is, how do we then change that? They don't deserve much patience, but if we don't give them any patience, we're guaranteeing they will always be against that person's rights. People need to be willing to listen to you first and feel not attacked. If you push people out of a society that would be willing to help them change, you push them into a society that will force them to stay the same. Those people do need therapy. They absolutely do. But they're not going to seek it without understanding that it would benefit them. What about the women who currently feel unsafe in the chat? Fictional, that is also a really good point. Which means that at some point I do have the responsibility of making sure this is a place that people feel safe to be and safe to chat and safe to express themselves and safe to talk about things that are relevant and important to them. And if other people are going to say, well, I don't agree with your right to exist or your right to have equality, I don't agree with your right to have a voice, then at some point I need to kick those people out of the chat, because why would I prioritize someone who is actively trying to subjugate someone else over someone who is just trying to exist? I think it's very, very unfair. This links back to the whole, why do you reward the bad kids in school more than you reward the people who are good constantly? As much as I want to be able to engage in conversation with people who have either outdated or honestly just quite abusive ideas, I also need to understand that there's a huge amount of people in the chat who don't like knowing that those ideas are even entertained in a chat. So when people turn around and say, oh, you know, women bad, if I turn around to them and say, let's have a conversation about why you think that, am I doing a disservice to the women in the chat who think, why are you giving any time and attention to this person who has clearly just said something that's just blanket insulting? And there have been times when we have just kicked people from the chat and banned them because they have got to the point of effectively showing beliefs that I think are now just damaging to everyone else more than the benefit of changing those beliefs would be. And the answer is, it's a balance you've just got to try and find. But how can you change my belief that the world is flat? You see, I don't even know if you're joking about that, because some people do genuinely believe it. But at some point as well, okay, let's imagine you're joking about that, but let's take that as a really interesting point, actually. At some point, somebody can hold a belief that I disagree with, that I just don't want to bother spending the energy to change. That can work, you know, that can just be the way it goes. But how do you know? I think I would trust the scientists that don't seem to have a reason to lie to me on it. And maybe I'm wrong, but I am willing to engage with the people whose job it is to research these kind of things. I think a lot of people that really engage with the flat earth theory, and there's an excellent documentary called Behind the Curve that I would recommend you guys watch. They often do it because they don't feel like they have enough control or agency in other aspects of their lives. And so being part of this club that has esoteric, secret, truth knowledge makes them feel good. It's simply a way of feeling good about yourself for having that knowledge. But there's also a choice where somebody can turn around and say, oh, hang on, okay, there are passport bros who get burnt out because they only flee to countries like the Philippines for the more humble women, but many other men are able to marry and have children in those countries. Still in the game, if you are being rejected by multiple women, you have to maybe look at the one consistent between those things and ask if the problem is you. If you have to leave a country, and remember that women are not a monolith. Milk Two Sugars, are you being controversial and contrarian simply for the fact of conversation, or do you genuinely believe that it is your right and your responsibility to just disagree with everything that we talk about? Because so far I've not seen you agree with a single thing. 51 million Justin Bieber fans doesn't mean his music is good, doesn't mean it's shit either. Just means it's not for you. Women are not a monolith. There are lots of people that will like lots of different things, and if every single person you meet finds you repulsive, chances are it's you. I think the idea of the passport bro is basically the idea of saying, hey, if women lower their standards, maybe I'll be good enough for them. Ray, Josh, I'm going to be real. I feel like you're using the word monolith all the time without actually considering the real monolith from the film A Space Odyssey. That's true. Maybe I've been saying things about that would hurt that, and I shouldn't say that. Sticky says, this feels weird to you because you're raised by two women as mothers, so your perspective always views them as fellow humans without weird connotations. Sticky, great. And I very much ascribe my raising to my grandmother. Unfortunately, a lot of people are very angry and very upset. Didn't take you for a Bieber fan. I'm not. I am completely indifferent to his music. I don't think everything has to be something that's either good or bad. Some things just are, and they aren't for me. It's totally possible for me to listen to music and go, I get who this would appeal to. This is not me. So it's not bad enough to be shit. No. I don't care about it. I'm indifferent to the music. Do you need it to be shit? Do you need everything to either be good or bad? Because that to me would show a relatively minimal understanding. You're a cyborg. What, the fact that I don't like something? What kind of music do I like? That's a good question. So my favourite band is a band called Abney Park. Abney Park are a steampunk rock band with a lot of... They kind of go through like an industrial phase, they had a techno phase, they had a weird country phase, but it's mostly steampunk. I've been listening to a lot of Miracle of Sound lately. Love Miracle of Sound. Nerdcore stuff from Shaudo, Rustage, Connor, Schwabity. Those guys are great. Fan of... You know what? Fan of classic dad rock. Like, stick some Nickelback on. I don't care if you don't like it. We'll stick some Nickelback on. We'll stick some Abney Park on. We'll stick some Skillet on. That's fine. I'm okay with that. And I'm not going to pretend I like Nickelback. People are like, oh, you've got to hate them. No, you've got it. Is it good, though? I like it. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. I like it. Didn't know steampunk music was a thing. Cool. Google Abney Park. I would probably say... Oh, God, there's so much good stuff. Nomad was a good album. Nomad was one of their best works, without a doubt. I like that a lot. Steam Powered Giraffe are a good one as well. Steam Powered Giraffe, and there's quite a few kind of steampunky bands that do some good stuff. How do you measure your like for something if you don't like it? I can enjoy the composition and the creation of something even if it's not necessarily a good thing. I like the first Power Rangers movie with Ivan Ooze, but it's not a good movie. I can just get pleasure from it. I can get enjoyment from it. And my enjoyment does not rely on somebody else liking it. You used to play D&D with one of Abney Park's old sound engineers. No way. So, random fact, I've actually got all of the Abney Park D&D models that they brought out for like 1 year. So they brought out actual metal miniatures of the band, and I bought those. I've not painted them yet, but they're super cool. So if you ever see them again, then know I've got those. Milk 2 Sugars has once again said, you like Justin Bieber. Are you trying to troll or are you trying to have a conversation? Because I'm starting to think I'm talking to someone who's a tad younger. Oh yeah, metal minis, man. Metal minis are a tad harder to paint, I personally find, because they don't get the details as focused as the good injection molding plastic. They've achieved both, yes. But hey, it's given us something to talk to for a while. Do younger people know Justin Bieber, though? No, I'd say that younger people know what they need to dislike. Whether they are familiar with the music or not, it's mostly about they need to dislike something. Now, let's just consider the alternative. The alternative is that they genuinely have meant everything they've said up until this point. Would you want to engage with that? Would you want to live in a world where that happens to be true? Because when people message me and say, oh, they're just trolling, I don't think those people understand that there's actually a huge amount of people who do genuinely believe all this stuff. There are a lot of content creators who have pivoted their audience to appeal to people who hate. And the reason they've done that is because when you have an emotionally isolated, an emotionally vulnerable audience who want validation and who often have a lot of insecurities, when you turn around and say to them, hey, I will validate you, I will reinforce those insecurities with reason, I will tell you that you are not the problem, everyone else is the problem. Society is the problem. Yeah, demographics are the problem. Unfortunately, that becomes a very lucrative fan base to have. It is remarkably financially rewarding to engage with and support and reward people who are hateful. It's very popular. What's my stream goal? Engage with people, chat, talk, hopefully convince some people to be more rounded, open, genuine human beings. Also play World of Warcraft, see what goes on. Josh, I'm talking to a friend in voice chat about this, and we both said demographic at the same time, and I don't like this. Anna, I'm listening. I'm there. I'm making sure I'm paying attention to what's going on. But yeah, it is. Don't you sometimes just want to talk about nonsense instead of super deep topics all the time? What makes you think we talk about super deep topics all the time? Or is this just the topics that you've had while you've been here? People message me on YouTube being like, hey, why do you only ever talk about negativity? And I'm like, what makes you think we only talk about negativity? And they say, well, we've only seen clips of you being negative. I'm like, okay, there are clips of me being positive, but you don't watch them. Maybe they watch the clips channel. Maybe they'd come here and they go like, you're always negative. No, the clips are because they get shared more. Your diet is not only what you eat, it's also what you consume. There are a lot of people in the world who feel deep down a lack of agency in their own lives. They feel unhappy. They feel scared. They feel weak. They feel that they do not have the ability, the input, the control that they would like to have. And these feelings can often manifest themselves as outward shows of agency, outward shows of power, outward shows of force. Now, it's obviously difficult and dangerous to say every insecure person is actually deeply insecure because of XYZ. It's going to change from person to person. But in my experience, the people that I have met that are most often and most willing to blame others, to seek systemic oppression that affects them, to put others down because of their own shortcomings, are people who are scared. They are people who do not have a huge amount of power, a huge amount of influx, and they are insecure. They are deeply insecure. And then you have a lot of content creators, a lot of celebrities, a lot of influencers who see this insecurity and they see dollar signs in their eyes. They realize that all they need to do is say the right words in the right order, and they can convince these people that not only are they correct to feel insecure, but by supporting them, they will be fighting the good fight and pushing back. You create a community and you fill it with those that have been isolated from other communities, and then you monetize them. How can you build a career on YouTube judging the worst MMOs if it's just an opinion and it doesn't mean it's bad at all? Because a lot of my videos and a lot of my opinions and a lot of my work, I suppose now, is not about telling people if something is good or bad. It is about telling people what I think the process is constructed from, why I think it's been constructed that way, what benefits, positives and negatives it has, and then what aspects would be worth looking into and changing it. You're ranking it as the worst. I'm not, though. There's a question mark in that title. It's a journey to find the worst. Is this game the worst? The answer, of course, is always no. I am conveying my opinion and then, importantly, explaining to people how I got to that opinion. I would rather people take from my videos how to think about things instead of what they should think about things. Milk, have you watched any of the videos? Just out of wonder. It's not clickbait, it's emotional titling. There's a bit of a difference. Clickbait is setting up a promise and then not delivering. Emotional titling is getting somebody to engage with a piece of media because they are immediately emotionally invested and then providing them with a suitable answer based on that emotion. Randran, thank you for the gifted subs. That is very kind of you. Welcome back to the Scarlet Monastery. Good morning, everyone. Morning? It's 10 to 11 at night. I mean, don't get me wrong, Isekai Demon Waifu was a pretty bad game. But if it appeals to people, it appeals to people. People want to talk about it. Milk says, man, I love your videos. If you love my videos, but you also don't understand that they aren't just telling people that they are not the worst MMO, it is a process of reviewing, then you don't. I love your videos. I ain't ever going to give your money, though. That's fine. Other people do. If you believe that my work is worth your time, but your time is not worth any money, that's okay. Insecure people will let you know how insecure they are. You said, yo, that's fine, but you were shaking your head. I think that a lot of people online just want to be angry at something. And there are lots of people who are deeply unhappy. And I think a lot of those people who are unhappy come here to vent. And I have to find that there is a balance between the venting that they want to do and the safety and emotional stability of people that want to be here consistently. Because, oh, thank you. Ah, that's very kind of you. If people want to be here consistently, they don't want this stream to just become constantly reinforcing the beliefs of people they disagree with. At some point, I do need to turn around and say, I not only disagree with your beliefs, but I disagree with giving you a platform. Now, I know that that will just drive people deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever belief they have, and they'll find a community that supports them. But at some point, I don't have a responsibility to teach everyone. You wonder how many people want to be angry compared to how many have been trained to be angry. I absolutely think that there is a discussion to be had that people are designed to be angry far more. Just don't focus on the trolls. The majority in here is positive. Evie, You're probably right. You're probably spot on. Josh, would you say that you're insecure? I sense a bit of insecurity from you. There are aspects of my life that I know that I am insecure over. And there are things that I work on, and there are things that I ask my friends to support me with, and there are aspects that I ask them to not make jokes about. And I think that understanding that things that I feel insecure about do not define me as a person, and they do not either increase or decrease my value. Why are you all so critical? Highlighting games and small communities, video about Lord of the Rings Online. Oh, Lord of the Rings was great. I actually spoke to some people that designed the original Lord of the Rings Online MMO, and they were really thankful to have that video. Josh, you're not getting bald, your hair is thick and beautiful. That's the one thing that I am happy with. Both my father and my grandfather still have a thick head of hair, so I'm fine with that. I think one of the things that still does make me insecure, believe it or not, this is going to be a weird thing, and I will tell you about this, is spending time around very wealthy people. I grew up in a working class family, not poor, but working class. And, my mum had a job, my dad had a job, we did fine for ourselves, we had presents at Christmas, but the British kind of working class mentality was very much instilled in me. And there was a nobility to minimum wage. They had jobs, that makes you working class. That's what working class is, you work. The clue is in the name. If you are surviving paycheck to paycheck and you do not have savings, Boris, you're not shadow banned. If you are working, paycheck to paycheck, then I would say you were part of the working class. But of course, everyone thinks they're working class. Don't middle class people work? Yes, they do. But I think the difference in the UK, especially because there's no hard and fast kind of class rules, I think middle class would generally be when you either were paying off a mortgage on a house instead of renting, and when, if you lost your job, you would not be destitute immediately. You would have a couple of months of savings to be able to sustain you. And through time, my mum and my dad were able to elevate themselves to middle class. I was able to do that as well. And I'm now definitely in the upper middle class of the UK. But there is still this almost unshakable guilt around earning anything over minimum wage. And I think my grandparents very much pushed it into me as well. There is this idea that if you are doing better than other people, there is a level of guilt and shame to be associated with it. But now, of course, some people will be able to elevate their position within financial independence. Is it imposter syndrome based on income level? I mean, potentially. I do live in the UK, yes. But I think it's definitely had this idea behind me that there is a level of extravagance that I still find gratuitous. Ha ha ha, is he from the UK? Yes. There is a level of extravagance that I still find gratuitous, and there is a level of, do you want to go to this restaurant, it's £200 a plate, that I still think, no, that's way too much. Why would I do that? Similar to the crab in the bucket or the sense of solidarity, potentially, yeah. I mean, I would still say that is a lot of money. But you're looking at restaurants with those prices, though. I tend to not. I would rather go to a Greg's. It's normally the people that I end up being around. But you looked. Are you trying to use this as a gotcha moment, or are you trying to bond with me? Because it feels like you're trying to use it as a gotcha moment. It's when a friend of mine says, hey, there's a group of us going to this restaurant, do you want to come? So I look up the restaurant, then I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I feel like you're using this as a gotcha instead of actually trying to have what's the word? A good faith conversation. He's trying to gotcha as if you claimed you're poor. We've never struggled. Well, no, that would be unfair. My mother and my father worked very hard to make sure that me and my brother were able to have a lot of nice things. In some countries, you could do a lot with that. A huge amount of the benefits that you will see through life is based on geography and luck. It really is. So I still feel a level of insecurity over that, which is why I try to make sure that I'm staying as grounded as I can. I think as well, and this is something that I'm going to need your opinion on, probably people in the chat who haven't been typing so far. This is almost focused on you guys. This Twitch stream, the YouTube, the Discord, all that is a digital third space. And the idea that we all hang out together, we all get to chat, we all get to collaborate, it's a social element. And I want people to feel welcome, but that does mean that we will occasionally get people who specifically do not vibe with the feeling. And at some point, it is no longer my responsibility to educate people who do not want to learn, especially in good faith. And it's not your place to constantly placate someone who is actively trying to be antagonistic. So at what point do we say someone is not welcome in this space? Is it when they start being antagonistic toward me? Or is it when they start being antagonistic toward you? Or is it when they start treating this space as a way where they can voice abusive opinions, monopolize it, and know that there will not be an immediate pushback? You guys want to go into the library? The library is this way. Right. Who else needs stuff? Going to stop here, been running for a couple of hours. You have. We've got a tank. We've got a healer. We've got a mage. So, you guys okay still? If it is, we can grab ourselves a damage dealer. Need DPS for Scarlet Monastery Library. Tells says whenever it disrupts the stream. That's a good point. That is as good as ever. I trust you know your patience and good faith is being abused to the detriment of the community. That is a great way of looking at it. The paradox of tolerance is what we get into with that. It's your space whenever you feel like it's necessary. I would say it's our space. Genuinely. I would absolutely say it's our space. Tolerance is indeed the social construct. The idea that you will be extended the grace of tolerance if you extend it to others. When you stop extending it to others is when you stop benefiting from it as well. That is the balance of that. You are the one providing a service for us, so it's also your decision if you want to keep certain people around or not. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I would like to be able to extend the courtesy of understanding to many people who themselves may not be understood. But as soon as it becomes apparent that those people have no desire to connect or understand, but instead simply disrupt and become the focus of attention, that's when we get into the point where we have to say, right, this is now detrimental to everyone else. This is no longer beneficial to me or to everyone. This is now only, in a way, selfishly beneficial to one person. People want to hang around people who believe what they believe. You should always try to ingratiate people, absolutely. But you've got to send a message by banning people who are specifically against the beliefs, because at some point, you have to be able to stand up for that and say, this is no longer gelling, if that makes sense. Callie and Gray, Josh, you're a commissar. Just shoot someone. Doesn't matter who. That's the attitude. Shoot one, the rest fall in line. That's why I play Imperial Guard now. I just have to believe that's the focus. Whenever you engage with these bad-faced people, we all lose the great topics. That's the truth. And here's the negative aspect, and I agree with it. Is it worth me losing one person's focus? Is it worth me gaining one person's support if it loses 100 people's support? A vocal minority do take up way too much time of this stream. But the opposite is that it just becomes a... Hang on. Escabil, Sigan, Eska, Elzaroon, Totemic. Cool, we're all here. We're all here. At some point, does it just become an echo chamber where people only agree with me? But I don't want that. Is there still a lad culture in the UK? I mean, I think it died with magazines quite a bit, but there's lots of different cultures. If I could get 10,000 people on this stream every single day. Josh, I'm sorry for asking self-centered questions. That's fine. The fact you're aware of that means that you are at least self-aware. What advice would you give to stop focusing too much on yourself, like constantly thinking you're unseen when people have troubles in their lives? A lot of your focus will come from your internal validation. Where do you want the validation to come from? Inside? Outside? Do you need people to say, hey, I recognize what you are doing and support it? Is that important? Combo Lizard, I've loved to learn more about why you think karma is real. I don't think I've ever said I think it is. I think part of me thinks it isn't, in a kind of nihilistic way, if you will. I want to make sure you read this, but you're wrong. It is not about people who disagree with you. It is about people who actively harm and offend other people. That's true, Moondoggy, that is very true. If people disagree with me in a respectful way, but they want to engage, that's fine. If people want to actively continue to spread and perpetuate ideals of discrimination and damage, then we should push people away. Does that seem fair? I think that's fair. I think that is fair. Who determines the damage? It's a good question. I do, because it is the space that I am curating. Inju, that is true. Whenever there is a topic about feminism, I think it's important to get a woman involved in that, because men would not like it if it was a room full of women discussing men's rights. So let me relink this back. If I was able to get tens of thousands of live Twitch views every day, but I needed to pander to an ideology that I don't agree with, or I need to placate the emotional feelings and validate groups of people that I do not agree with, would I do that if it meant a huge amount of financial gain? Should I push away 100 people to validate one? That's the question. And the answer is probably no. If I'm pushing away 100 good, decent people, decent, honest, hard-working people, and I'm trying to validate someone who is being bigoted or someone who is being abusive or offensive. But should I push away the 100 bigoted, offensive, abusive people to validate one person who is being kind and genuine, honest and caring? In that case, people who are focusing on this from a moral point of view, an ideological point of view, would say no. But at what point is this just a job? At what point do you need to start looking at the numbers of the job? See, Milk, that's going to get you banned. Unfortunately, saying gas them all, that is just too far. So goodbye. So when we go back to the idea of, is this just a job? Is this just an entertainment-based job? Is it just a character that I need to play? I'm fine with people being a little bit of a dickhead, but as soon as someone comes around and says, yeah, the solution is to just kill everyone I dislike, no. This has been one of the Saturday streams. If you've disliked this stream, don't worry, so have I. Unfortunately, it's Saturday, and Asmongold has been banned off Twitch for a week, so we have had to contain some of the fallout of that. And I think it's been rather apparent. Inju is a hero. That's true. It's Sunday tomorrow. That's okay. It's Sunday tomorrow. It has definitely been a Saturday. Oh, damn, what did you miss? Nothing important. Nothing important. If you are making a game and do want to advertise it, you can message at me in the Discord. I'll see if I have some free time to play it. I can't guarantee I will, but if you message me in the Discord, I will see what I can do for you. This team are an absolute powerhouse, by the way. You guys are doing great. I am putting very little effort into this run, and you are doing super well. Now you're going to be honest again when Josh asks how I am. Inju, always be honest with that anyway. Otherwise, I don't know how you're doing. Have I ever visited Poland? I have not. That Polish food, that's lovely. Polish neighbors are great too. Am I excited for the new Strixhaven set coming out? I am still getting through the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set. There is a lot of Magic the Gathering happening recently. And I am still trying to enjoy the previous sets while these ones were coming out. You skipped the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set, you went Rift-bound for the month. That could be a good choice. Can you imagine how much easier it would have been if instead of trying to have nuanced conversations, I just validate everyone's most extreme beliefs and then tell them that if they sub to me, they're even better than they thought they were? Because I think a lot of people do that. I think that could be a thing. Call me cynical. It would be content. I'd be retired if I did. I could retire. Absolutely. Still in the game, I can see that you have some opinions on some things. And I think it needs to be made very apparent that this online space, if you will, is a much more, I suppose, liberal would be the word, space than you were probably expecting it to be. And because of that, you may be presented with a lot of people pushing back against the dislike that you have for some of those moments. So you can dislike the gratuitous nature of the amount of sex scenes available in Baldur's Gate 3, but you also don't get them unless you actively look for them. Like, you can play the game without sleeping with anyone. You just don't do that. What is my opinion on opinions? I have too many of them and wish I didn't, and would like to just not think for a while. That'd be great. Oh, inventory's full. I see. Let me just drop some cheese on the floor. I don't need Stormwind Brie. That's not important. You don't understand Dungeons and Dragons either. What can you do? It's an imagination-based game. It is about telling a story. We love you arguing with people with different opinions, but it feels sometimes you don't find the line between disagreeing with you and just wanting to harm other people. That is a great thing that we should look into more. That actually was really good. People can disagree with me provided that your disagreement is not actively harming a, I would say, already relatively marginalized group. Is that a fair way of putting it? How can you harm someone through a Twitch chat? Duck, I would say that the word harm, are you actually asking? Because if you're actually asking, what it would be is, it wouldn't be physical harm. It would be contribution to a society that is, I would say, confrontational or aggressive to live in for people that are part of communities that are not often supported or powerful. If that is your genuine question. When we say about, causing harm to a society, it doesn't mean that you're going out and actively punching someone in the face. What it can sometimes mean is that you are contributing to a framework that is designed, or is maybe not necessarily designed with the intention to, but is by design oppressive to an element of society. Does that make sense? It was a genuine question. In that case, Doug, yes, the way that people contribute to what we would refer to as harm is continuing to perpetuate either harmful stereotypes that will encourage people in real life to treat people in certain ways that have negative connections. Why should it be bad to be confrontational? Kama, it isn't necessarily bad to be confrontational because conflict can lead to benefits to both sides, but can you understand that if everything you do is confrontational, if every situation is designed to be confronted, it becomes incredibly draining. So it's less about emotional harm and more about normalizing harmful worldviews. That's a good way of putting it, Doc, yes. There are many people who do not want to think about what they should do. There are many people who want to effectively be told how they should act. And what people do is they see how society is and they act in a way that they believe will get praise from society. So when you start normalizing the dehumanization of one demographic or another, when you start normalizing the jokes that are at the expense of someone or something instead of in kind of collaboration with them, we normalize this lifestyle framework where it's okay and even encouraged to punch down. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be encouraging a society where we can take huge demographics of people and basically say, hey, we're going to make jokes at these people's expense and treat them like, a punching bag, and everyone has to be okay with that because it's just a joke. It's a good joke if a lot of people are laughing at it and if there's a level of respect there. But at the same time, I can also just say, I'm not the content creator for you. Feeling, I agree. People live like this. There are a lot of people on the internet that are unhappy. Do I think these thought processes then fall into a tribalist mindset? If you disagree, it's a personal attack. Yes, Sam, yes. If people are not confident in themselves, they build their personality around something that is stable, something that is confident, something that is long-lasting. And what people then get is this parasocial attachment to a concept. And when someone questions that concept or that idea, people think that they're being questioned themselves personally. And if people aren't confident in themselves, they take questionings of their worldviews as questionings of them. Now, consider it like this. I have said that there are certain video games that I don't like, and people that do like those games have actually contacted me and they've said, how would you feel if I said that I didn't like a game that you like? And the fact that they felt the need to say that to me, you know what that says? That says that they were so offended and hurt by my opinion on a game that they like, that they want to cause the same offense and the same hurt to me. And they think that they will do that by saying they dislike a game that I like. And the reason they think that matters is because they think everyone has the same connection to video games that they do. Part of their identity is based on not only liking the game, but having other people like that game as well. And so when they say, how would you feel if I did the thing that you did? My answer is I wouldn't care, because my happiness doesn't rely on your validation of what video games I like. But to them, there is no way that it couldn't. Yeah. Renegade, it's... Schrodinger's asshole is someone who was both being serious and just joking based on how the crowd take their joke. You say something that's a little bit edgy, a little bit testing the waters with societal acceptance. And if people around look at you and go, oh man, you're so right, they're like, yeah, man, I am. That's how I really feel. And if people turn around and go, that was a bit of an arsehole thing to say, you go, oh, it's just a joke. You got to balance it. That's how they got to find it. People's opinions only have value if you care about them. Yeah, just kidding. Unless it's testing the water of where you can push it. Other people, yeah, exactly. If people need to contact me, they will say, hey, I heard you dislike this game. Why do you dislike it? The irony is that people could work out why I dislike something by watching the video where I explain why I dislike something. The issue that I take is I put my opinion out on the internet because people found my opinion to be relatively entertaining, and the way that I put my ideas forward is a way that people like playing videos in the background. And then people feel the need to contact me to confront that opinion, to have that dialogue, to start that conversation. The problem is that I get hundreds of messages a week from people who just want 5 minutes of my time, who have to tell me why they disagree with me, or who have to tell me that I should have thought differently because of this, or this. And honestly, that is so draining. Because it's not like I want to say to someone, I don't think your opinion has any relevance to me. It's that I have to say, I simply do not have the time to engage with this. I am engaging with hundreds of people a day about stuff. And it becomes noise after a while. I have had entire essays emailed to me. I have had Instagram messages which are pages long. I've had Discord messages which include screenshots of things to prove people's points. And honestly, I think these people that do that just want to be heard. I think at some point they just feel so isolated that they need to be heard. If 100 people contacted me a week and I just gave them 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, and then just a hardcore cutoff, that's what, 500 minutes of a week? It's already a hell of a lot of time. Genuine question. Why are the majority of romance stories involving infidelity, and why are we expected to find it romantic? They're not a majority of stories. I don't read a hell of a lot of romance novels, but I would say that there are a lot of stories out there that cater to people's fantasies, and we have to decide whether they do or don't cater to them. I mean, I would say that the vast majority of romance stories that exist purely out of volume would be Astarian fanfiction on AO3. Like, if we just purely go off the amount of written works that exist, probably that. This is Gale Erasure. He can do that by himself. Don't worry. Do you feel very attacked right now? Look, AO3 is Archive of Our Own. It is a fanfiction repository site where you can write stuff and put it up on the internet. And some of you are going to go there now and discover your new favorite thing ever. But it is remarkably important that we understand that a huge amount of stories don't get published. They just exist because people wanted to write them for pleasure. Hey, maybe late, but struggling to get into exercise due to fear over it overcoming my lifestyle. How so? Overtaking, not over. Are you a person with an addictive personality? Are you scared that if you decide to get into exercise, it will become the only thing you do? I mean, there are worse things, don't get me wrong. I wonder if Josh wants to know what lots of romance novels entail. I mean, I think lots of them cover lots of different things. Guys, I will be off for the evening. Let's see who else is streaming, because I know that you don't want the voices in your head to be focused on. Luality is streaming. We love Luality. CD is also streaming. You know what? Joe Joy is doing Crimson Desert. I've not watched Joe in a while. Let's go and see what she is up to. I've met Joe before. She's a good friend. Let's go see what Joe's doing. I've not played Crimson Desert yet. You people seem to want to know what it's all about, so let's go and see what Joe is up to. For now, take care, good night, God bless.